Chapter 276. Ancestor Red Leaf and Yan Wujiu looked at each other, a hint of surprise and interest appearing in their eyes. The two of them stared fixedly at the young alchemist with a bird on his shoulder. The battle pill just now was the work of this alchemist, and in his hand was a battle pill that was a mixture of blue and gold. The surface of the golden battle core shook and several cracks finally appeared on it. Before the fierce beasts inside the battle core emerged, a faint pressure began to spread through the cracks on the surface of the battle core towards the surrounding magic light. Crack! The battle pill completely shattered. At this moment, all the alchemists were unconsciously attracted by the golden pill. A 1-foot-long four-legged snake with a single horn on its head suddenly appeared in front of all the alchemists. What is this? A dragon? Is this a dragon? What a joke! The pressure that suppressed everyone's mind was instantly expelled from the hearts of all the alchemists. It's just an act. All the alchemists burst into laughter. Yu Jiangrui and the others even mocked Lu Ping with unbridled mockery. Senior brother Qi and senior brother Yi were also laughing. However, they were disciples of big sects after all, so their laughter was very reserved. However, the contempt in their eyes was even more blatant than Yu Jiangrui's. The 5 alchemists from the 5 big sects did not laugh. The long-necked youth did not laugh either. They looked at the dazed and ridiculous four-legged snake thoughtfully. How could this four-legged snake, which seemed to be constantly adapting to its own body, act like a living thing? Zhou Chuang and Ning Shiai's both had expressions of disbelief on their faces. On the white cloud in the center of the heavens cave, the core forging enlightened masters of the major forces didn't laugh. They didn't have the guts to laugh at an alchemist in front of a group of alchemists. Moreover, how could it be a strange four-legged snake? The core forging enlightened master's spiritual force clearly sensed a restrained sharp qi from this four-legged snake. This was definitely a ferocious creature. At this moment, the 5 alchemy grandmasters had an unfathomable expression on their faces. There was a trace of disbelief and even a trace of envy in their eyes. It was clear that with their experience, they could sense many things from this four-legged snake. Spiritual battle pill. Yan Wujiu sighed and said, "When I succeeded, my cultivation had already reached the early stage of the core forging realm, right? Laozu is really smart. He actually came up with such a method. He not only maintained the order of the Elixir Association, but also selected the most powerful cultivators from the alchemists to enter the Ziyue Cave Heaven. He killed 2 birds with 1 stone." After a long while, Hongye Laozu finally said, I didn't think that this kid could actually reach such a level. The practitioners of the world only know that we, the Grand Masters of Alchemy, are able to refine core drugs for Dharma adepts. How would they know that refining the remarkable battle elixir is the true standard for a Grand Master of Alchemy? The spiritual battle elixir is only 1 step away from the remarkable battle elixir. Yan Wujiu suddenly smiled and said, "There will always be more and more geniuses in this world. Instead of sighing at these juniors, why don't we stick to our own path? Otherwise, we will only mess up our own state of mind." Hongye Laozu was also amused and said, "Exactly. No wonder you, Yan Wujiu, were able to become a Grand Master of Alchemy before you reached the Dharma stage. Even the old man could not compare to you in terms of your state of mind." Yan Wujiu laughed and said, "Laozu must be joking. Didn't Laozu say that Wujiu's talent was better than Laozu's, but he still gave me pointers without regard for the difference between humans and demons? If it wasn't for that, Yan Wujiu's achievements today would have been delayed by tens of hundreds of years." As the two of them spoke, Yu Jiangrui had already begun directing the sea of fire above his head to burn the four-legged snake. At this moment, the alchemists who had activated the power of the battle elixirs did not want to be outdone. More than 30 alchemists directed their own battle elixirs to attack each other. Just as the sea of fire wrapped around the four-legged snake, a desolate roar came from within the sea of fire. Yu Jiangrui's smug smile immediately froze on his face, and his face immediately turned pale. In the middle of the sea of fire, there seemed to be a golden monster dashing around. From time to time, it would reveal a scaly claw from within the sea of fire. However, no matter how you looked at it, this was not the power that a 1-foot-long four-legged snake monster should have. I didn't think that the higher the rank of the battle elixir, the harder it would be to control it. However, Yu Jiangrui's Sea of Fire has been a great help. With a smile on his face, Lu Ping cast a few hand seals according to the battle pill recipe. Suddenly, a 90-feet-long behemoth broke free from the Sea of Fire and soared towards the highest point of the grotto heaven. After Lu Ping's sword dragon broke free from Yu Jiangrui's Sea of Fire, all that was left were a few scattered sparks that scattered in the cave and slowly extinguished. A fire crow rushed towards Yu Jiangrui. Yu Jiangrui's expression changed, and he took out another battle elixir, which turned into a sea of fire once again. A wave of fire rose up, and the fire crow that had rushed over to take advantage of the situation was submerged in the sea of fire. The sword dragon soared into the sky, and the battle elixirs that rushed over to stop it were all smashed to pieces by a casual claw of the sword dragon. Finally, some people realized that this strange four-legged snake monster was not to be trifled with, and they all avoided it. Senior Brother Yi and Senior Brother Qi glanced at each other, and simultaneously launched an attack towards Lu Ping. The sword dragon was about to ascend to the highest point of the cave occupied by the 6 experts. Suddenly, a fire bird swooped down from the sky. At the same time, a fire fox nearby shook its tricolored tail towards the sword dragon. Suddenly, 3 flames transformed into 3 fire ropes that wrapped around the sword dragon. Lu Ping sneered, and the sword dragon shook its head and tail. The horn on its head suddenly shot out, and the fire bird let out a silent scream. It hastily flew to the side, but 3 of the 6 tail feathers on its back had already been cut off by the sword dragon's horn. The horn transformed into a sword light, like a spiritual fish. After repelling the fire bird, it drew a circle in the air, and finally returned to the sword dragon's head, transforming back into a single horn. This was the sword light of the sword dragon. Senior Brother Qi's expression changed, and he hurriedly stopped the fire fox that was about to pounce on the sword dragon. He saw the sword dragon's swaying tail suddenly produce a layer of golden sword waves, which cut the 3 fire ropes into pieces. This was not a snake, but a flood dragon. This was a sword dragon formed by the sword light of the sword spirit. For a moment, not only the pill refiners in the cloud room, but also the many enlightened masters in the central cloud released their divine sense, probing the sword dragon that had rushed to the highest point of the cave. The sharpness of the sword dragon caused the cultivator's divine sense to feel a faint pain, as if it was being cut apart. Even the enlightened masters felt a faint sense of discomfort when they probed the sword dragon with their divine sense. 324 sword lights of the sword dragon. All the cultivators present sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw the blood condensation realm Lu Ping. This level of swordsmanship. At the highest point of the cave, a 30-meter-long sword dragon looked majestically, fighting against the heaven-splitting sword Qi, the purple rune talisman, the lightning fire chain, the crystal pagoda, the death gray Qi, and the parasol tree. Chapter 277. This serpent is quite unique. Hongye Laozu was now a little surprised. A rogue cultivator of unknown origins actually has such attainments in alchemy and spells. I'm afraid that even your disciples and grand disciples would not be able to tolerate such a strange talent. Yan Wujiu chuckled in a low voice and said as if nothing had happened. Hongye Laozu did not speak. When he looked over, the highest point of Qian Yuan Cave was already surging like a storm, and a chaotic battle had begun. Whoever could last until the end naturally meant that the quality of the battle dan was the highest. Not only was the quality of the battle dan high, but the ability of the alchemist was also high. The 7 battle dawn at the highest point, rather than saying it was a chaotic battle, it was better to say that it was a continuous battle against Lu Ping. How could a rogue cultivator actually be like the disciples of the 5 great sects and create such a powerful sword dan? How could this group of arrogant geniuses, who had always been treated as geniuses by their sex and nurtured with all their might, be convinced? However, the sect's magnanimity still needed to be respected. At this point, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the disciples of the 5 great sects were too embarrassed to join forces and expel Lu Ping first. Hence, they all came up with this method. The 5 great sects will not bully you. As long as you can exchange one move with each of us, we will naturally acknowledge your strength. Otherwise, it is important to know one's own limits. It is better to find a rogue cultivator like you. As for the other long-necked youngster. What a joke, didn't he see that his teacher was able to chat cheerfully with Hongye Laozu? With a famous teacher and a great disciple, the disciples of the 5 great sects naturally would not go against him. One sword split the sky. Skyren's disciple was the first to attack. How could the sky contain 2 types of sword chi, not to mention that no one could see Lu Ping's sword serpent as clearly as Skyren's disciple? That was a sword serpent completely formed from sword chi. How was this possible? Even the most tyrannical sword geniuses of the same level as Skyren was only at this level. No matter what, he had to find out. Little did he know that Lu Ping's swordsmanship was far more than that. The disciple of sky-breaking sword sect reached out his hand and drew a half-arc in the air. Suddenly, a stream of piercingly cold sword chi that had gathered up in the sky above the cave suddenly split up, charging towards the sword dragons. The 7 streams of sword chi were none other than the sky-breaking sword chi, which had a mind of its own. Lu Ping was eager to compete with the famous Heaven Splitter sword chi. The sword dragon circled in the air in a strange posture. It then opened its mouth and spat out 7 spirit-linked sword rays that intercepted the 7 Heaven Splitter sword chi. The 14 spirit-linked sword rays fought in a dazzling manner in the sky. The scattered sharp sword rays made the surrounding battle core cultivators afraid that they wouldn't be able to dodge in time. In the end, a series of explosions rang out, and the battle core cultivators perished together. The faces of Lu Ping and the disciple of Skyrend were solemn. The disciple of Skyrend did not expect this person's swordsmanship to be able to compete with Skyrend's psychic sword chi. The strong magic power contained in the opponent's psychic sword light surprised him. On the other hand, Lu Ping was in awe of the Heaven Splitter sword chi's sharpness. Every time the sword chi struck, it felt like the sword light and the arcane energy contained in the sword chi were tearing apart. Not only could this sharp sword chi tear apart the opponent's arcane energy, but even Lu Ping's divine sense could faintly feel a pulling force. This sword chi could even harm a cultivator's divine sense and divine sense. However, it was obvious that the swordsmanship of the cultivator in front of him had not reached such a level. After the 7 psychic sword chi and Lu Ping's sword light perished together, the disciple of Skyrend decisively withdrew the remaining ordinary sword chi. It was obvious that he had recognized Lu Ping's strength. At this moment, a huge crystal pagoda suddenly appeared above the sword dragon's head. In a flash of light, the pill master of the crystal palace, Ning Shi'ais, coldly said, "Suppress." The first floor of the crystal pagoda suddenly lit up. Lu Ping suddenly felt the sword dragon's entire body sink, as if there was a mountain pressing down on it. The second floor of the crystal pagoda also began to light up. Ning Shi'ais coldly shouted again, "Seal." Just as Lu Ping was about to command the sword Jiao to break free from the pagoda's suppression, an invisible light barrier hung down from the second floor of the pagoda. When the sword Jiao crashed into the light barrier rippled and blocked the sword Jiao. Collapse. Following Ning Shi'ai's shout for the third time, an invisible force suddenly invaded every part of the sword dragon's body. It was like a piece of wood being nailed into the ground, trying to dismember the sword dragon. Lu Ping coldly snorted. Without waiting for Ning Shi'ais to light up the fourth floor of the crystal pagoda, he changed his sword art in the water. Green Dragon Sea Disturbance Technique. Even with the suppression of Ning Shi'ai's crystal pagoda, the sword dragon still beautifully drew a few lines in the air. Then, its sharp horn fiercely crashed into the light curtain of the crystal pagoda. Immediately after, it used its 4 claws and tore a huge hole in the light curtain of the 5 elements. Ning Xiai's expression changed as he watched the sword dragon break free. Lu Ping changed his sword art. The sword dragon let out a silent roar and swept past the side of the crystal pagoda. Ning Xiai's expression changed again, and he hurriedly shouted, "Block!" The 4th floor of the crystal pagoda quickly lit up. A layer of crystal light had just covered the pagoda when the sword dragon's tail had already struck the pagoda. The crystal pagoda shook, and the crystal light on its surface swayed a few times. Finally, it burst like a bubble. The 4th floor that had just lit up was quickly annihilated. Ning Xiai's face suddenly turned pale. He took out a medicinal pill from the bracelet on his wrist and swallowed it. He said bitterly, "Restore." The highest 6th floor of the crystal pagoda lit up. Countless flickering lights gushed out from the 6th floor. The originally shaky crystal pagoda quickly stabilized. Seeing that Ning Xiai's was at a disadvantage, Kun Shanjinren snorted heavily. Lu Ping, who had just regained his footing under the siege of the crowd, suddenly heard a thunderous sound in his ears. Lu Ping's whole body trembled. For a moment, he felt dizzy, and the magic power in his body suddenly became chaotic. Lu Ping tried his best to calm down. He quickly condensed his divine sense, which was no less than that of an early-stage core-forging sage. He expelled the discomfort from his body and regained control of his body. Lu Ping knew that he had been plotted against. He looked in the direction of Kun Shanjinren, who was on the central cloud, and saw that Kun Shanjinren's face was also pale. Before Lu Ping could figure out why, he saw that the sword dragon in the sky had lost control and was showing signs of dispersing. The 5-striped purple amulet and the thunderfire chain saw an opportunity and unexpectedly joined forces to attack the sword dragon. When Kun Shanjinren attacked Lu Ping with his divine sense because Lu Ping had defeated Ning Xiai's, many people noticed it. However, only the Crystal Palace dared to do this. How could other people dare to cause trouble for no reason? However, Kun Shanjinren had forgotten that the Elixir Association of the Northern Alliance was not led by Kun Shanjinren, but by a Dharma idol, Laozu. With him around, how could Kun Shanjinren be so arrogant? After Kun Shanjinren snorted, a cold wind blew. Kun Shanjinren suddenly felt weak. Was he sick? Kun Shanjinren was shocked. Who could make an alchemy grandmaster sick? Only then did Kun Shanjinren remember that he was arrogant in front of Laozu. This was not the Crystal Palace, but the Ziyue Cave Heaven of the Northern Alliance. The reason why Kun Shanjinren attacked Ning Xiai's was that Ning Xiai's position in the Crystal Palace was too important. However, the Crystal Palace would never fall out with an alchemy grandmaster because of this. Lu Ping was furious. He made 9 seals with his hands like a butterfly flying through flowers. The weak sword dragon suddenly shook and the horn on its head flew out again, smashing the 2 purple lines that flew out of the purple amulet. The purple amulet was so scared that it stopped immediately. The remaining 3 purple amulets on the surface of the amulet formed a chain, defending against the sword light that was pointing at the purple amulet from afar. Just when the sword dragon's horn flew out, a series of 12 thunderfire chains suddenly gathered together and whipped at the sword dragon, trying to besiege the sword dragon. The sword dragon used its own method to attack the sword dragon, but it twisted the thunderfire chains in the opposite direction. The lightning and fire continued to crackle on the surface of the sword dragon, and the scales formed from the sword lights were shattered into pieces. However, the sword dragon remained unmoved. Its slender body twisted again and again, and at the same time, it clawed and tore the half-foot-thick lightning and fire chains in half. Finally, it was quiet. No one doubted Lu Ping's strength anymore. When Lu Ping looked up, he saw Zhou Chuang of the Northern Alliance and the long-necked young demon who had followed Yan Wujiu to fight. The thick gray qi covered the sky and moved towards the huge parasol tree. The leaves of the parasol tree emitted a faint fluorescent light. The fluorescent light flowed and dripped down from the surface of the leaves, forming a fluorescent screen. The deathly gray qi was firmly blocked outside the fluorescent screen. At this moment, the scene in Qian Yuan Paradise suddenly changed. When Lu Ping looked again, all the spells and qi in the sky had been swept away. The entire winter sky was clean. It was as if the scene of dozens of alchemists fighting with alchemists had never happened. Then, Lu Ping suddenly felt his eyes brighten. His body seemed to be bound by an invisible force. Before Lu Ping could break free, the force automatically loosened. Lu Ping calmed himself down. When he looked up, he found that he had arrived in an even larger palace made of clouds. At the head of the palace were Hongyi Laozu, Yan Wujiu, and Qin Jinren. Next to them were the Jinren of the other four sections. Lu Ping himself was being watched by the pale Kuan Shan with a pair of hazy eyes. On both sides of Lu Ping were the other 15 alchemists from the 5 sects of East Sea. However, the long-necked young man, senior brother Yi, senior brother Qi, and even Yu Jiangrui were among them. You are the top 16 of the alchemy gathering. Hongyi Laozu smiled and said to Lu Ping and the other 16 alchemists, the Northern Alliance will select 8 alchemists from among you to enter Ziyue Paradise. That place has now become a place of both danger and opportunity. Only the best blood condensation alchemists will be able to reap the greatest rewards without risking their lives. This is also the reason why the old man went against the majority's opinion and made the battle pill one of the criteria. Seeing that everyone was silently thinking about his words, Hongyi Laozu continued, "All right, is there anyone who wants to withdraw?" Chapter 278. No one backed out. Everyone could see that the other 4 sects of the Eastern Sea had brought their best alchemists in the blood condensation realm for the Northern Alliance pill gathering. They definitely had something up their sleeves. Now, it seemed like their target was Ziyue Cave Heaven. Yu Jiangrui and Lu Ping couldn't back out either. They still had a cauldron-smashing promise. Hongyi Laozu nodded at perfected Qin and waved his hand in front of him. The surrounding white clouds quickly retreated. Only then did everyone realize that they were on the center of the white cloud. Hongyi Laozu had just used his power to separate them in the cave heaven. Battle pill. In terms of quality, it's just a mid-grade half-step forging pill. We'll decide the winner in the next stage. Yu Jiangrui said coldly as he walked past Lu Ping. His arrogant tone was replaced by a serious one. Anytime. Lu Ping walked towards Li Maolin. As Lu Ping's alchemy skills were gradually exposed, Li Maolin became more polite to Lu Ping. Attend the ceremony? That's strange. Usually, when a person wants to become a disciple, they invite friends and relatives. I didn't expect the Eastern Sea to have such a custom. Li Maolin didn't understand what Lu Ping meant by the Eastern Sea. He just said, although the Eastern Sea doesn't have such a custom, my daughter's teacher, Perfected Plum, has such a rule. I can only follow her lead. Moreover, Perfected Plum can be considered an extraordinary person. She set up the listening plum in Qianyuan City with her bare hands. She even has dealings with Fa Xiang Laozu. Most of the forces in Qianyuan City have to give her face. This Perfected Plum was probably the expert who hid behind the screen that day. After Qi Lianying came out from behind the screen, although Lu Ping's divine sense didn't detect anyone else behind the screen, the feeling of being watched was still there. This was also the reason why Lu Ping didn't get too entangled with Chu Ting and the others. Someone who could avoid his divine sense from a distance of 2 to 3 feet was naturally not someone he could provoke. Essence Expanding Pill. This was the pill that Lu Ping and the other 16 alchemists needed to refine in the 4th stage. On the path of cultivation, the most important thing was the foundation. However, cultivation was like rowing a boat against the current and passing through a desert. There were bound to be ups and downs and many detours. When a person's potential was stimulated and their accumulation was exhausted, and they were unable to advance any further, they would finally reflect on the foundation they had at the beginning of cultivation. The density of the magic power in their body was an important manifestation of a cultivator's foundation. The essence expansion pill was a miraculous pill that could expand the space within one's core, allowing the condensed blood bead to grow even further. It could allow a cultivator to expand their foundation and advance further on the path of cultivation. Refining the yuan expanding pill required 26 kinds of precious thousand-year-old spirit herbs, the same number of spirit herbs as the 7-step marked pill, but the difficulty was much higher. The refining of the yuan expanding pill could be said to represent the highest level of alchemy below the level of alchemy grandmaster. Yu Jiangrui, senior brother Yi, senior brother Qi, the alchemists from the 5 major sects, and the long-necked youth, all of them more or less glanced at Lu Ping before opening the furnace, but the meaning behind their gazes was different. Ah, I'm actually lucky enough to collect its recipe before I advance to the core forging realm. This is an important accumulation for me to advance to the core forging realm. Lu Ping had always walked the path of having a strong magic power, paying attention to his foundation, and even slowing down his cultivation speed. This yuan expanding pill seemed to be tailor-made for Lu Ping, as it could bring out the characteristics of Lu Ping's strong magic power to a greater extent. This way, he might advance to the core forging realm a little later, but it would be beneficial for Lu Ping in the future. Moreover, with the 12 spirit pearls in the space of Lu Ping's heart, it was beyond Lu Ping's current strength to control such a powerful natal magic weapon. This made Lu Ping drool even more over the effects of the yuan expanding pill. Lu Ping's heart was bursting with pride, but he still looked calm on the surface. However, he did not take out his mid-grade alchemy furnace from his storage ring. Instead, he raised a storage bag, and a 3-legged cauldron that was half the height of a person fell with a loud rumble. A high-grade alchemy furnace. This person also has a high-grade alchemy furnace? He only took it out now, he hid it well. Smashing the cauldron, no wonder. As soon as Lu Ping's alchemy furnace appeared, many of the spectating sects and forces immediately began to discuss it. Yu Jiangrui, senior brother Qi, and senior brother Yi looked at Lu Ping with bewilderment. This was the furnace that Li Maolin had given to Lu Ping on Dai Shooting's behalf when Lu Ping was taking a break from alchemy. It could also be considered as a disguised apology to Lu Ping for breaking through the barrier. Lu Ping ignored everyone's expressions. The cyan yuan was once again grabbed by Lu Ping. Lu Qin, who had long become a stubborn person, said something rather angrily. Lu Ping smiled and nodded in agreement. Only then did he spit out the cyan yuan fire again for Lu Ping to refine alchemy pills. Demonic beasts were generally divided into top, upper, middle, and lower ranks according to their innate talents. Although the cyan yuan was a middle and upper rank demonic beast, Lu Qin cultivated both wind and fire. Lu Ping's intuition told him that Lu Qin's rank was not lower than that of a high-rank demonic beast. Otherwise, she would not have looked down on the red phoenix fire and refused to merge with it. Then Lu Qin's cyan yuan fire was at least a high-rank beast fire, and it was barely compatible with a high-rank alchemy furnace for alchemy. At this time, the firebird in senior brother Ye's mouth had already flown around the alchemy furnace countless times. Senior brother Yi carefully observed the situation in the alchemy furnace with his divine sense, but he decisively pulled out the hairpin. Ignoring his messy hair, he hurriedly threw the hairpin up. The wooden hairpin suddenly turned into powder in the air and was blown into the bottom of the alchemy furnace. The firebird took the opportunity to spit out a few strong flames. The flames at the bottom of the alchemy furnace became more and more red, and the cloud room was stirred up by waves of fire. Senior brother Qi also used all his strength. The fire fox circled around the alchemy furnace faster and faster. The red, blue, and white tails constantly swayed and shot out sparks. Finally, senior brother Qi changed the fire-controlling incantation in his hand. The 3 fox tails were all entangled together, and the 3 colored flames emitted from the tails gradually merged with the sound of bursting, turning into a thin line of fire, endlessly gathering and entangling the bottom of the alchemy furnace. The scene in the alchemy furnace stabilized. Senior brother Qi looked slightly relaxed. He took a break from the busy work and wiped the beads of sweat on his forehead. Yu Jiangrui's face was solemn. He was only paying attention to the alchemy furnace in front of him. The flames at the bottom of the alchemy furnace had changed into 9-colored flames. It could be seen that Yu Jiangrui had collected a lot of fire seeds and was well prepared for refining various elixirs. But then he glanced at the cloud room where Lu Ping was, and it could be seen that his mood at the moment was absolutely not calm. After the purification technique, an elegant but distant fragrance suddenly filled the nostrils of all the cultivators in Qianyuan Cave. Just when everyone was surprised, Immortal Qin and the other 4 alchemy grandmasters changed their expressions and looked at the cloud room where Lu Ping was. He actually has this thing in his hands. No wonder. This little guy has quite a lot of good stuff. Even I am a little envious. Hong Yi Laozu looked at Lu Ping with a smile. He held a small jade bottle in his hand and dripped a few drops of viscous purple liquid into the alchemy furnace. Yan Wujiu's expression was a little ugly. He said, "What a waste. Refining such a low-level elixir is a reckless waste of God's gift." Senior brother Qi and senior brother Yi were still wondering what Lu Ping was up to, but Yu Jiangrui's expression changed drastically. He said in a low voice, "Purple crystal royal jelly." The Northern Alliance had prepared 2 sets of herbs for each of the 16 alchemy grandmasters. Lu Ping successfully refined 4 elixirs on his first try. Lu Ping sighed inwardly. If he used the indigo spiritual fire, he was confident that he could successfully refine 5 elixirs on his first try. Lu Ping was originally a little proud of himself for refining 4 elixirs. However, when he looked up, other than senior brother Qi and the others who looked a little gloomy, the alchemy grandmasters of the 5 sects of Eastern Sea and the long-necked young man were still indifferently focused on their alchemy furnaces. Amidst the rumbling, the high-grade alchemy furnaces were opened one by one. The 3 alchemy grandmasters from Purple Talisman Pavilion, Wind Thunder Island, and Skyrend each produced 4 elixirs. This shocked Lu Ping greatly. Only then did he realize that the disciples of the most powerful sects had probably practiced refining elixirs for a long time. It was not something that a cultivator like Lu Ping, who could only improvise on the spot, could compare to. For elixirs burst out of the furnace one by one, then were stored in a jade bottle. Yu Jiangrui looked at Lu Ping darkly. He did not say anything. After recovering his transcendence energy for a while, he started refining the second cauldron of elixirs. Senior brother Qi and senior brother Yi each produced 2 elixirs. They looked a little dejected, but they still forced themselves to stay alert. They knew that this was a rare opportunity to practice. It was not easy to collect these herbs, not to mention that the elixirs produced were from their own sect. Lu Ping pretended to recover his transcendence energy while looking at Ning Shiais, Zhou Chuang, and the long-necked young man. Amidst the rumbling of the alchemy furnaces, the 3 of them each harvested 5 elixirs. They were indeed the disciples of an alchemy grandmaster. Their alchemy skills were indeed above him. However, if he used the blue spiritual fire, he would not be much weaker than them. However, Lu Ping also knew that he had more or less borrowed the power of the purple crystal royal jelly. However, these meticulously trained alchemy grandmasters had probably come into contact with and even refined the elixir before. This was the first time that Lu Ping had refined this elixir. For some reason, Immortal Qin announced that the 4th stage was the finals. Each alchemy grandmaster only had 2 chances to refine the elixir. Lu Ping still felt that he had not had enough. The second batch of elixirs would determine the winner. This time, Lu Ping looked at Ning Shiais and the other 2. The 3 of them were obviously hesitating. After a while, Zhou Chuang took the lead. He took out a spirit-gathering plate filled with mid-grade spirit stones and 3 high-grade spirit stones in the middle. Amidst the exclamations of the crowd, they were not looking at the extravagant spirit-gathering plate. Instead, they were looking at the flickering bean-sized flame in the center of the plate. Just as the flame appeared, the rich spiritual energy in the Qianyuan cave vibrated and quickly gathered around the bean-sized flame. Heaven and earth spiritual fire, this is heaven and earth spiritual fire. Amidst the exclamations of many cultivators, Zhou Chuang stretched out his hand and flicked the gray flame to the bottom of the alchemy furnace. The bean-sized flame quickly grew to the size of a wash basin. The restriction that enveloped the cloud room was instantly burned by the high temperature and disappeared. This is the 10,000 bone phosphorescence, a black spiritual level low-tier bone phosphorescence. It was born in the cemetery. Lu Ping's knowledge was no longer the same as before. He could see the origin of this spiritual fire at a glance. The appearance of the heaven and earth spiritual fire shocked all the alchemy grandmasters present. Ning Shiai's gritted his teeth and suddenly took out a golden elixir the size of a goose egg from his storage belt. Ripples of flames flickered on the surface of the elixir. However, every time the flames were about to emerge, a dense silver net would flash from the surface of the elixir and firmly trap the flames within the elixir. The alchemy grandmasters present immediately gasped. A golden core enlightened master who cultivates a fire attribute cultivation method. Chapter 279. Kun Shanjunren, who had just been punished by Hongye Laozu for plotting against Lu Ping, saw Ning Shiai's take out a golden core, and his pale face became even more unsettled. This is a monster cultivator's golden core, right? Hee hee. Anyone could understand the meaning of Yan Wujiu's sneer. Kun Shanjunren said humbly, it is indeed a monster cultivator's golden core. Martial nephew Ning got it from an overseas adventurer. At this moment, Kun Shanjunren no longer had the arrogance of a master alchemist from the Crystal Palace. Yan Wujiu sneered and said no more. Kun Shanjunren let out a long sigh. Martial nephew Ning was a bit unwise. Fortunately, this is the territory of human cultivators, so he didn't anger this person. The Crystal Palace didn't have the deterrent power it did among human cultivators in the East Sea, and Yan Wujiu obviously wasn't someone he could provoke. When Yan Wujiu questioned Kun Shanjunren, the alchemists from the other big sects of the East Sea, including Hongye Laozu, were watching coldly as Kun Shanjunren was humiliated by Yan Wujiu. Seeing that Yan Wujiu didn't pursue the matter, Hongye Laozu asked with a smile, now that the little guys have begun to take out their treasures, I wonder what kind of fire seed you have prepared for martial nephew Wanyu. I don't have Laozu's generosity to prepare a treasure like the heaven and earth spirit fire for Zhou Chuang, nor would I find a human cultivator to dig out his golden core. Speaking of this, Yan Wujiu looked coldly at the slightly embarrassed Kun Shanjunren and said, but Laozu, don't forget this kid's origin. Hongye Laozu suddenly understood and said, the Woodluan clan's innate magical power, wood fire. Then Laozu was a bit surprised and said, has martial nephew Wan already collected 3 kinds of top-grade fire seeds and cultivated the innate magical power of the Woodluan clan? Yan Wujiu shook his head and smiled, how could it be so easy? This child is too arrogant. He doesn't care about ordinary fire seeds and insists on collecting second-class and above fire seeds. I'm afraid that even when he reaches the core forging stage, he won't be able to collect all of them. Yan Wujiu's words were disapproving, but his expression was full of gratification. As soon as Yan Wujiu's voice fell, the long-necked youth, Wanyu, took out a half-burnt piece of wood out of nowhere and spat out a ball of white flame from his mouth. He then flipped his hand and took out a jade box. After opening it, there was also an orange ball of fire inside. Wanyu placed the 2 fire seeds on top of the half-burned wood, and a cracking sound rang out. Wanyu then made a few hand seals, and the 2 fire seeds actually fused with each other, and then the half-burned wood began to burn. Lu Ping clearly saw that when the 2 fire seeds were placed on the wood, the explosion of the fire seeds before they fused with each other had caused a large amount of spiritual power to fluctuate, and an abundant amount of wood spiritual power was stimulated from the half of the burnt wood. It was a 1,000-year-old Wutong wood, and it was very likely to be a mutated spiritual wood that was influenced by a spiritual object. With the support of the second-class spiritual wood, the 2 fused fire seeds burned like a torch, and then Wanyu used the flames on the fire to open the furnace to refine pills. Up until now, Immortal Qin had only announced the rewards for the top 8 in the elixir gathering. Entering Ziyue Cave Heaven was obviously a difficult reward, but there was no mention of the next reward. However, Ning Shiais and the other two were obviously using their trump cards to determine who was better. Could it be that the Northern Alliance had prepared some amazing rewards? Lu Ping wanted to have a good fight with these three people, but the Azure Spiritual Fire was his last trump card. If he didn't have a strong backer like Zhou Chuang to protect him, Lu Ping probably wouldn't even be able to leave Qianyuan City. Lu Ping's expression changed a few times. Seeing that the other alchemists had started to refine the second batch of pills, Lu Ping calmed down and thought to himself, fine, I owe them a favor anyway, so I might as well owe them a bigger one. Lu Ping cast a total of 18 hand seals, and the high-grade cauldron in front of him suddenly trembled. The lid opened and a stream of bright yellow fire flew out from the cauldron. The stream of fire gathered under Lu Ping's control, causing the surrounding spiritual power to ripple. Although it was not as powerful as Zhou Chuang and the other two's fire seeds, it still attracted the attention of the other alchemists and the representatives from the sects below. A third-class spiritual fire, this is a spiritual fire that has lost its spirituality. Wan Yu's eyes lit up, and he mumbled to himself as he looked at the fire Lu Ping was controlling. This was a good fire seed that he could not find even after searching for 100 times. It seems like there are many hidden talents in the East Sea. The one who spoke was Skyren's Immortal Ji Yayuan. I think Immortal Ji values this person's swordsmanship even more. Although this person's swordsmanship is not as sharp as the Sky Splitter's sword Qi, it is strong and hard to defend against. Purple Talisman Pavilion's Immortal Yuhai asked with a smile. Immortal Ji did not comment. In this elixir gathering, other than the alchemists from the 5 sects, this person has the most potential. As long as he advances into the core forging realm, becoming an alchemy master is almost a done deal. However, I'm afraid Immortal Ji is not the only one who values talent, right? Wind and Thunder Island's Feng Lianying spoke directly, but Immortal Ji did not even look him in the eye. Yu Jiangrue's heart sank when he saw Lu Ping take out the bright yellow top-grade fire seed. However, Yu Jiangrue was indeed a top-notch alchemist in the blood condensation realm. After Lu Ping took out the fire seed that Chu Ting temporarily borrowed, Yu Jiangrue quickly focused all his attention on his pill furnace. He did not seem to be affected by Lu Ping at all. With the experience of refining the first Yuan expanding pill, in addition to the high-grade pill furnace, the transformation of divine sense in advance, the modified purification technique, the purple crystal royal jelly, and the spiritual fire of heaven and earth that had lost its spirituality, Lu Ping's second Yuan expanding pill could be said to be the best of his alchemy skills. However, which alchemist didn't give it their all when they took out their trump cards? After a day, the Qian Yuan cave was once again filled with the rich fragrance of pills. It was time to open the furnace and retrieve the pills. Senior brother Qi was the first to open the furnace. Ignoring the exhausted and dispirited fire fox, senior brother Qi stored the Yuan expanding pill in a jade bottle. However, he only managed to refine 3 pills. Although the success rate was 10% higher than the first time, unless senior brother Yi and Lu Ping failed in their second attempt, the Wang family, which was represented by him, would obviously lose in the competition between the 3 families for the mine. The cultivators of the Wang family had obviously realized this problem. Their faces turned slightly gloomy. Wang Yishan looked in the direction of Lu Ping with an extremely sinister gaze. His eyes flickered back and forth between his dark and clear face. No one knew what he was planning. In the end, senior brother Yi had the advantage of being the host. When he refined the second furnace of pills, he used a secret technique that used his own blood essence to improve the quality of the fire seed. Although he would lose a lot of vitality after refining the pills, he managed to refine 4 Yuan expanding pills. Yu Jiangrue had already reached 12 types of fire seeds. This was the limit of the fire seeds he could control at present. Unfortunately, although he had many fire seeds, the quality was uneven. Although the second furnace of Yuan expanding pills was one more than the first, it was also his limit. The three alchemists of Purple Talisman Pavilion, Skyrend, and Wind and Thunder Island gave their all, but in the end, they were only on par with Yu Jiangrui. Yu Jiangrui was an independent cultivator. Although he had more than 10 years of experience in alchemy, to be on par with the elite alchemists of a large sect with rich resources and a perfect inheritance was already a very impressive result in the eyes of an ordinary alchemist. However, Yu Jiangrui could not be proud at all. Ning Shiais opened his furnaces one by one. After storing the 6 yuan expanding pills into a jade bottle, he carefully sealed the golden pill, which was emitting a pill fire, and put it back into a jade box. Once the long-necked young man, Wan Yu, pulled out the 1,000-year mutated wudong tree from under the furnace, the merged fire seed split into two again amidst an explosion. One flew into his mouth, and the other was kept in a spirit-gathering treasure box. At the same time, he kept the 6 yuan expanding pills in a jade bottle. The myriad bone spiritual fire was unquestionably the most eye-catching existence in this pill meat. Just as Zhou Chuang opened his furnace to retrieve the pills, Lu Ping was done with his yuan expanding pills. Although Lu Ping refined the pills after Zhou Chuang, the higher the quality of the fire seed, the better the spiritual herbs impurities could be removed during the refining process, and the longer the refining time could be extended. Therefore, Lu Ping's furnace opened at the same time as Zhou Chuang's. 7 pills. Zhou Chuang successfully refined 7 yuan expanding pills. Even so, he was not the one in the limelight. It was the young cultivator who had the guts to make the cauldron-smashing pact. Lu Ping also successfully refined 6 yuan expanding pills. He was not as good as Zhou Chuang, but he was on par with Ning Shiais and Wan Yu. An alchemist who was a rogue cultivator was not inferior to an elite alchemist from a prestigious sect. Moreover, Ning Shiais, Zhou Chuang, and Wan Yu were God-favored children who were personally guided by an alchemy grandmaster, which was an amazing feat in itself. Moreover, the cauldron-smashing pact was also an influence. Yu Jiangrui seemed to have aged by 10 years in an instant. He caressed the furnace in front of him like an old man with one foot in the grave. Li Maolin and his daughter were secretly delighted. The three families shared a share of the spirit mine on the nameless island, and the Li family could monopolize half of it, while the Wang family had the least. Wang Hua's face was frosty, but he did not dare to vent his anger on senior brother Qi. Lu Ping looked at the 6 yuan expanding pills in the jade bottle in his hand. He was also a little surprised, but then he was overjoyed. Lu Ping's alchemy skills had finally made a breakthrough at the last moment. His success rate of refining a half-step forging pill had reached 60%, which meant that Lu Ping was qualified to try refining a forging pill. If it was said that Lu Ping was called a quasi-alchemy grandmaster after he refined the half-step forging pill for the first time, it was a compliment, but now that Lu Ping had stepped on the threshold of an alchemy grandmaster, it could be said that he truly deserved to be called a quasi-alchemy grandmaster. The elixir gathering had not ended yet, but everyone's eyes were on the ashen-faced Yu Jiangrui and the high-grade furnace he was caressing with his hands. A high-grade furnace was comparable to a magic treasure. Not only the alchemists in the Heaven's Cave, but also ordinary cultivators would also feel pained when they saw it. This pill furnace, to smash, or not to smash. Chapter 280. The alchemists from the 5 major sects, the long-necked youth Wan Yu, Lu Ping, and Yu Jiangrui were the 8 most skilled alchemists in this gathering. After the appraisal of the 5 grandmasters and 2 grandmasters, Zhou Chuang was ranked first, while Lu Ping was ranked 4th. Yu Jiangrui's success rate was the same as the disciples of the 3 major sects, but his decades of experience in alchemy made him ranked 5th behind Lu Ping. Just when everyone was looking forward to the cauldron-smashing agreement between the two, the 8 alchemists suddenly disappeared. At the same time, the 5 grandmasters, Hongye Laozu, and Yan Wujiu also disappeared. In a place surrounded by white clouds in Qian Yuan Paradise, Lu Ping and the others stood in front of the 5 grandmasters and 2 grandmasters. Daoist Qin didn't mention anything about Ziyue Paradise. Instead, he smiled at Lu Ping and said, little friend Lu Jiu, due to the uniqueness of Ziyue Paradise, please postpone the cauldron smashing agreement. What do you think? Lu Ping hurriedly said, as you wish, Daoist Qin. Daoist Qin smiled and nodded. Little Yu's teacher and the old man were both rogue cultivators. We were best friends 200 years ago. Later, the old man joined the Northern Alliance by luck and advanced to the core forging stage, but my old friend passed away when his lifespan was up. Fortunately, little Yu received his old friend's skills. Although he was a little narrow-minded, he got what he deserved this time. It's just a pity to smash the cauldron. How could Lu Ping not know what enlightened Master Qin was trying to say? He nodded and said, Enlightened Master, you're right. Yu Jiangrui and I were just fighting because of personal feelings. Now that I've won by luck, I won't be too aggressive. Lu Ping was still a little unwilling. Fortunately, he had won. If Yu Jiangrui had won, he didn't know how many people would point at his back and scold him for overestimating himself. Who would speak up for him then? After all, he was just a hemolytic condensation realm minor repairs expert. He didn't have the capital to bargain with the masters and grandmasters here. Fortunately, Lu Ping had no intention of killing Yu Jiangrui. The reason why he made the cauldron smashing Yu Jiangrui's cauldron might seem reckless, but in fact, he was confident in his victory and had other plans in mind. However, he didn't expect Chu Ting to lend her cauldron and fire spark to Lu Ping, saving him the trouble of exposing his indigo spirit fire. Daoist Qin laughed and said, Lu Xiaoyu worry too much. The cauldron smashing agreement is a heavy promise to us alchemists. A loss is a loss. Besides, there are many fellow cultivators here as witnesses. How can we let bygones be bygones just because of the old man's plea? Little Yu can let Lu Xiaoyu deal with him. The old man only wants to protect his old friend's inheritance. Yu Jiangrui was already over 100 years old, but Daoist Qin was a core forging cultivator. His lifespan was at least 500 years, so he was willing to be called Little Yu by Daoist Qin. Listening to the conversation between Lu Ping and immortal Master Qin, Yu Jiangrui was also an arrogant person. Although he was dispirited and frustrated after losing to Lu Ping, if he could avoid the cauldron smashing because of immortal Master Qin's plea, Yu Jiangrui felt that he might as well smash the cauldron and end the matter. However, after hearing Daoist Qin's words, he thought of his teacher's kindness. It was obvious that he was hinting at him to endure the humiliation, so he said, If I'm willing to bet, I'll accept my loss. I'll let you deal with me. Lu Ping pondered for a moment and said, In that case, Yu Jiangrui, are you willing to be my servant for 10 years? Without waiting for Yu Jiangrui to agree, Lu Ping said, After this elixir gathering, I will prepare to go into seclusion to break through to the core forging stage. There will be a lot less time to refine pills and medicine, and there will be a lot of obstacles in my cultivation. If you listen to me for 10 years, you can leave or stay after 10 years. Daoist Qin nodded with a smile and did not say anything. Yu Jiangrui's expression changed. He suddenly raised his head and said, Then it's settled. The original body of Ziyue Grotto Heaven was a treasure called Ziyue Hoop. However, this treasure was now broken into 8 pieces. Because the collapse of the Grotto Heaven was too sudden, although the cultivators of the Northern Alliance managed to save most of the inheritances of the Northern Alliance's alchemists, there were still some important inheritances that were lost in the collapse of the Grotto Heaven. Although the powerful cultivators of the Northern Alliance temporarily stabilized the broken Grotto Heaven, the original body of Ziyue Grotto Heaven was broken into 8 pieces and became 8 broken small worlds. There were many dangers inside, and the space was extremely unstable. It could collapse at any time. Only blood condensation cultivators could enter the broken Grotto Heaven and not cause too much damage. Even so, they could only last for 3 days. You only have 3 days. After 3 days, regardless of whether you complete the mission or not, you must leave the broken Grotto Heaven. Otherwise, if the Grotto Heaven collapses, there will be no chance of survival. Daoist Qin emphasized again and then said, "You only need to place the array disc in your hand into the designated position in the grotto heaven. Everything you gain from the process of solving the inheritance will be the reward that the Northern Alliance gave you for your ranking in the elixir gathering." Lu Ping and the others were happy to hear this, but they were also unhappy, especially Zhou Chuang and the others who were in the top 3. Daoist Qin saw this and smiled. However, the broken grotto heaven that everyone enters is different. 8 spaces, 8 inheritances, so naturally, the opportunities inside are different. In short, the space that the first place enters is the largest and the most stable. There are also the most inheritances inside. The danger is low, so the rewards are naturally easy. The lower the ranking, the fewer inheritances there are, and the fewer the rewards. Only then did everyone understand. Ziyue Hoop was originally a treasure with 8 grotto heaven treasures. After it collapsed, the 8 treasures were separated and used by the powerful cultivators of the Northern Alliance to temporarily stabilize the 8 small grotto heavens. Lu Ping entered the small grotto heaven that was temporarily formed by the 4th treasure restriction of Ziyue Hoop. In the chaotic and directionless space, a part of the space suddenly rippled like water, and then a leg stretched out from the water ripples. Lu Ping looked at the space in surprise. In Qian Yuan Grotto Heaven, Hongye Laozu had always used white clouds and green mist to cover many cultivators. Lu Ping had not had the chance to see the true face of Qian Yuan Grotto Heaven. Now that he looked at Ziyue Grotto Heaven, it was completely different from the 7-star Grotto Heaven that Lu Ping had entered before. However, when he thought about how broken Ziyue Grotto Heaven was, Lu Ping laughed. Even if Ziyue Grotto Heaven was in perfect condition, how could it compare to 7-star Grotto Heaven? However, after tens of thousands of years, 7-star Grotto Heaven still existed. Lu Ping's luck was pretty good. He was in a messy spiritual herb garden. Although there were not many high-grade spiritual herbs in the garden, there were a lot of them. Many of them had beautiful flowers, and there was a faint fragrance in the air. In this extremely unstable space, Lu Ping didn't dare to rashly open Qian Zhong Su's mystic instrument. He only lured the purple crystal bees out of the mystic instrument and then ignored them. He looked at the map given by Daoist Master Qin and slowly walked in a direction. Most of Lu Ping's purple crystal bees had advanced to the 3rd layer of blood refining realm. Each of them was the size of half a fist. There were even a few male bees that had advanced to the 4th layer of blood refining realm. Finally, a queen bee was born in the swarm. Unfortunately, it was still around the 4th layer of blood refining realm. The royal jelly that was brewed was not enough for the queen bee to enjoy. However, Lu Ping could use it to try to tame Dao soldiers. Lu Ping had just taken a few steps when a line of blood suddenly appeared on his arm. The protective spell on the surface of his arm and the protective aura shield were torn apart without any warning. Cold sweat appeared on Lu Ping's forehead, and he felt a lingering fear in his heart. These were the cracks formed by the disintegration of space that Immortal Qin had repeatedly warned him to be careful of. These cracks varied in size and were extremely difficult to detect. With Lu Ping's current cultivation, he might lose an arm or a leg if he accidentally bumped into one. This was much more difficult to deal with than the forbidden formation on Fei Ling Island that had sunk to the bottom of the sea. Lu Ping released his divine sense that could cover an area of more than 2 miles. He also used the old method to condense his divine sense to an area of 1 mile in front of him. Only then did he vaguely notice a few spatial cracks that were not the size of rice grains in front of him. As Lu Ping walked, he paid attention to the things around him. After the collapse of Ziyue Cave Heaven, many treasures from the land of inheritance were scattered around. Naturally, Lu Ping would not miss this simple opportunity. Lu Ping pondered for a moment and still dragged Debao out of the spirit beast pouch. He told Debao not to go beyond the range of his divine sense. Debao was originally a mouse, so it was naturally timid. Even without Lu Ping's orders, Debao stayed within 100 feet of Lu Ping. Sure enough, after a while, Lu Ping waved his hand and a jade slip that was scattered in the grass was discovered by Lu Ping. Immediately after, De Bao dug out a jade box from the ground and ran towards Lu Ping excitedly. Lu Ping took the jade slip and looked at it. It turned out to be a pill recipe for the flowing cloud pill. It was a type of pill for the late blood condensation realm. It happened to be of use to Lu Ping. Lu Ping was very happy and kept the jade slip in his storage ring. Lu Ping took the jade box from De Bao. Initially, he thought that there would be some spiritual herbs sealed inside. After opening it, he saw two exquisite high-grade magic tools. One was a jade hoe and the other was a jade shovel. Both were essential tools for managing the spiritual herb garden and collecting spiritual herbs. Lu Ping also had a medicinal pestle in his hand. However, it was just a magic tool. It had always been used by Lu Ping as its main job had long been abandoned by Lu Ping. It was not bad. Lu Ping's spiritual herb garden had always been located in the Thousand Bell Millet. Over the years, the low-grade spiritual herbs in the garden had provided Lu Ping with a lot. With these two magic tools, it would undoubtedly be much easier to take care of the garden. Due to the existence of spatial cracks everywhere, Lu Ping did not dare to move quickly in the broken grotto heaven, let alone fly. Therefore, by the time Lu Ping arrived at the land of inheritance, it was already half a day later. Along the way, Lu Ping also had a small harvest. However, there were some pill recipes, records of knowledge, high-grade magic tools, spiritual herbs, and some spirit pills. Among them, there was a bottle of disguise pill which made Lu Ping's eyes light up. This was a kind of half-step forging Dan pill. It could allow Lu Ping to change his appearance. Even a Taoist master of forging Dan would not be able to detect it. The only pity was that Lu Ping did not find the pill recipe to refine the disguise pill within a radius of a few hundred feet from where the disguise pill was found. There were also 2 fire seeds. However, these fire seeds were obviously of low-grade quality. They were not even as good as the Scarlet Nightmare fire. However, there were many kinds of pills and strange ones. Perhaps some pills with some low-grade fire seeds would have a better effect than the high-grade fire seeds. There was also a low-grade alchemy furnace which made Lu Ping very happy for a while. Although it was only a low-grade alchemy furnace, Lu Ping only had 3 alchemy furnaces so far. One of them was the Na Chuan cauldron which he could only look at enviously. Chapter 281. The land of inheritance was made up of 5 mountains that were hundreds of feet tall. These 5 mountains were the land of inheritance of the 5 alchemy masters. In the middle of these 5 mountains, there was a huge array in a ring-shaped valley. In the middle of the array, there was an irregular circular stone trough. That was the destination of Lu Ping's mission. Lu Ping only needed to put the array disc that Immortal Qin had given him into the stone trough. Then, he could tear the teleportation talisman and leave this broken space that was about to collapse. But before that, Lu Ping had to pass the first test of the 5 alchemy masters. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to pass the array formed by these 5 mountains. Lu Ping put the array disc into the stone trough. These tests were originally left behind for the disciples of the Northern Alliance. As long as one passed one test, it was possible to inherit the inheritance of a mountain. However, Lu Ping obviously wouldn't dare to do that. He didn't believe that Hongye Laozu and Immortal Qin would put them in these grotto heavens. He was afraid that his every move would be observed by the 2. If he really touched the inheritance, he would have to obediently hand it over after he left the grotto heavens. He might even have to pay for it. Just as Lu Ping arrived at the land of inheritance, Hongye Laozu and Immortal Qin were looking at a bronze mirror in front of them somewhere in Qianyuan Mountain. On the bronze mirror, as Hongye Laozu's finger kept pointing, the image of Lu Ping and the others in the 8 broken grotto heavens kept flashing on the mirror. Immortal Qin hesitated for a moment and asked, "Uncle Master, although the Northern Alliance Elixir Association adheres to the principle of 100 schools of thought competing, it's still a bit inappropriate to let the disciples of the other 4 sects enter the Northern Alliance's land of inheritance." Hongye Laozu smiled and said, you don't know this. Ziyue Grotto Heaven is the earliest Grotto Heaven magic treasure made by the Northern Alliance. Back then, the Northern Alliance didn't have enough power in the East Sea. 6 of the 8 Grotto Heavens were obtained by the Northern Alliance's Laozu from the 6 sects of the East Sea. Therefore, after the Purple Moon Hoop was made, the Northern Alliance owed the 6 sects a favor. For thousands of years, the East Sea has changed. Only 4 of the 6 sects are left. Therefore, the opening of the Ziyue Grotto Heaven's land of inheritance can be considered as returning the favor owed by the ancestors of the Northern Alliance. Hongye Jinren paused and said, although these juniors have to go through the alchemy master's test, they won't really get the inheritance of these ancestors. Some of the rewards after the test, although there are good items, are more than a drop in the bucket for the Northern Alliance. Immortal Qin still felt it was a pity. Hongye Laozu continued, among these 8 land of inheritance, the most valuable one is naturally the inheritance of the alchemy master. However, there are only 4 of them. 2 of them are in the Grotto Heaven space where Zhou Chuang is. The other 2 are in the Grotto Heaven space where Wan Yu is, and the other is in the space where Lu Jiu is. Immortal Qin was surprised and said, if that's the case, didn't I just lie to the other 4 sects, especially the Crystal Palace? Hongye Laozu smiled slyly and said, when did you lie to them? You only said that there are a lot of inheritances, but you didn't mention the quality of the inheritances. According to the number of inheritances in the Grotto Heaven, Ning Shi'is from the Crystal Palace will go through 6 tests. If he passes all of them, he will get 6 rewards. He is indeed ranked 3rd among the 8. Immortal Qin laughed in relief. The 2 of them observed the bronze mirror for a while and found that all 8 of them had entered the land of inheritance. This Lu Jiu has quite a lot of good items. As a rogue cultivator, not only does he have a high-grade cauldron and a top-grade spiritual fire that has lost its spirituality, he even managed to raise a low-grade spirit-seeking mouse to the mid-blood condensation realm. Could the bees that he released earlier be the legendary amethyst bees? No wonder he has amethyst royal jelly. Immortal Qin clicked his tongue and continued, when I was at the same level as him, I was also a rogue cultivator. My wealth is far from his. Hongye Laozu shook his head and said, the last cauldron and fire seed were lent to him by the master of the Li family from the elixir gathering. The bees are indeed amethyst bees, but they look like they have just been cultivated. They are only at the 3rd layer of the blood refining realm. Even the queen bee might not have appeared. The amethyst honey is fine, but the royal jelly is far from it. He must have obtained it together with the amethyst bee eggs by chance. Immortal Qin hesitated and said, Uncle Master, then should we? Hongye Laozu looked at Immortal Qin and said, get him to join the Northern Alliance. Immortal Qin was stunned for a moment and immediately said, yes, just like I did back then. Hongye Laozu smiled mysteriously and said, he is an alchemist invited by the Li family. Will the Li family not fight for him first? Immortal Qin was puzzled and said, Li family? It is just a medium-sized force under the jurisdiction of the Northern Alliance. Although it belongs to the Northern Alliance, it is not on Qianyuan Mountain. How can they? Li family, Hongye Laozu waved his hand and interrupted Immortal Qin, it is not as simple as you think. Immortal Qin thought for a moment and said, that is true. A medium-sized force with 200 to 300 years of history can easily take out a high-grade cauldron and fire seed. Their foundation is indeed not simple. Hongye Laozu saw that Immortal Qin did not understand what he meant, but he could not directly point it out for some reason, so he said, in a few days, Immortal Plum of the Listening Villa will accept the daughter of the Li family as a true disciple. The old man has an invitation to the ceremony. You can go on behalf of the old man, Master Plum. Immortal Qin was stunned. Only now did he know that what Hongye Laozu said was not normal. However, when he heard that Hongye Laozu wanted him to go on behalf of the ceremony, his expression became happy again. Just as Qin Jinren was about to turn around and leave, he heard Red Leaf Patriarch say as if he was talking to himself, it's the tradition of a few big sects in the Central Plains to acknowledge a master and attend the ceremony. Only some sects in the North Sea overseas still have these old customs. Immortal Qin was stunned, then he bowed and left to entertain the 4 alchemy masters of the other 4 sections. Lu Ping chose the shortest mountain peak. Halfway up the mountain, an invisible light shield blocked Lu Ping outside, leaving only a red door formed by 2 red curtains of light in front of the archway. Lu Ping stretched out his hand and pushed the red light curtain door open. Then, a ball of black flames poured out like a flood and rained down on Lu Ping. Dark prison poison fire. Lu Ping was delighted. He did not expect to encounter such a rare fire seed for the first time. This fire seed was a kind of heaven and earth strange item. It was absolutely impossible to use it to refine elixirs. This was because this kind of fire was the most poisonous, and even the elixirs refined with it would carry serious fire poison. Generally, the fire used for alchemy had some restraining effect on poison. Only this dark prison poison fire had the opposite effect. However, if an alchemy master deliberately refined some poisonous elixirs, strange elixirs, and strange elixirs, this dark prison poison fire was the best choice. Poison on top of poison. Lu Ping's hands formed a fire control spell. 9 seals were made in a row along with Lu Ping's strong transcendence energy. The poison fire that was surging toward Lu Ping stopped for a moment. Then, the huge fire continued to slowly oppress Lu Ping. Lu Ping's divine sense followed. Under the protection of transcendence energy, the huge poison fire was bound. Then, the whole fire became smaller and smaller until it shrank into a line of fire and connected with the flame on the spiritual gathering plate behind the archway. Lu Ping's mind moved, and the protective gang qi on the surface of his body swelled up. Once it came into contact with the dark prison poison fire that had shrunk into a line, there was a continuous explosion. Lu Ping's tyrannical divine sense was not inferior to a core-forging Taoist master, but it was difficult for him to control the violent dark prison poison fire. The myriad poison meteorite evil qi in Lu Ping's protective gang qi also showed signs of losing control. Fortunately, Lu Ping reacted in time and his transcendence energy was strong. After withdrawing the protective gang qi, he regained control of the dark prison poison fire. However, this whim of Lu Ping made Lu Ping have a new idea. Now was not the time to test his idea. Lu Ping picked up a jade slip next to the spiritual gathering plate. This was the test of the alchemy master in this mountain. Myriad poison pill. This was an extremely important series of poison pills. The refining of this pill could be said to be both easy and extremely difficult. It was easy because only 7 or 8 kinds of century-old poisonous herbs could be used to refine the simplest myriad poison pill. However, this pill could at most poison an early-stage blood-refining realm minor repairs warrior to death. If one could collect dozens or hundreds of 500-year-old poisonous herbs and 1,000-year-old poisonous herbs, it would not be difficult to refine a pill that could cripple a core-forging Taoist master's transcendence energy. Lu Ping's test was to use this unrefined dark prison poisonous flame to refine a half-step core-forging realm myriad poison pill. This kind of poison pill required 14 kinds of 1,000-year-old poisonous herbs and more than 20 kinds of 500-year-old poisonous herbs. According to the description in the pill recipe, even if a core-forging Taoist master mistakenly consumed this pill, his Zhen Yuan would be damaged and he would have to spend several days to expel the toxins from his body. Of course, it was also quite difficult to deceive a core-forging Taoist master into consuming this kind of poison pill. Lu Ping's spirit sense was strong enough. Chu Ting's bright yellow flame was not refined by Lu Ping, so he could still use it to refine the essence-expanding pill. Now, using the dark prison poisonous flame to refine the myriad poison pill was also a piece of cake. Lu Ping picked out the poisonous herbs one by one from the jade box beside him according to the pill recipe. He then took out his mid-grade alchemy furnace. It was not that Lu Ping did not want to use Chu Ting's high-grade alchemy furnace, but after refining the poison pill, there would be some toxins left in the alchemy furnace. It needed to be carefully nurtured before it could be removed. Chu Ting's alchemy furnace was only used to help him compete for the elixir gathering. Using it to refine a poison pill would pollute the alchemy furnace. 2 hours later, the myriad poison pill was freshly made. He randomly picked one pill from the 6 pills and placed it in a hole on the spirit-gathering plate. A "kacha" sound was heard, and the base of the spirit-gathering plate suddenly separated from the ground. Lu Ping knew that this was his reward. After carefully storing the spirit-gathering plate of the dark prison poisonous flame into his storage ring, the jade slip with the recipe for the myriad poison pill also fell into Lu Ping's hands. Although there were only a dozen or so recipes for the myriad poison pill, there were 2 pills for the core forging stage. Lu Ping would need to become an alchemy grandmaster before he could refine them. Lu Ping casually put away the spiritual herbs he had prepared for refining the myriad poison pill from the storage bag beside him. He did not enter the mountain road behind the decorated archway. Instead, he retreated from the archway. That was where the Real inheritance was located, but there would be a number of tests to pass. That place was reserved for the inheritors of the Northern Alliance, but it was not something that Lu Ping could obtain. With a loud bang, the red curtain of light closed up again. Lu Ping had successfully passed the first test, and he cautiously walked towards the second mountain peak. Chapter 282. The ground suddenly exploded, followed by a crack a few feet wide. Looking down from the crack, it was a strange and dazzling scene. The vegetation on the ground had become a mess, and the small hillside in the distance had already collapsed, forming a large sunken pit. The towering trees had suddenly snapped in half without any warning, and the smooth-cut surface was almost shining with a luster. Lu Ping looked at this scene from a distance in embarrassment. If he had not relied on his divine sense to react quickly and left this area first, he was afraid that he would have followed in the footsteps of those towering trees. Even so, at the last moment, Lu Ping's flying escape artifact, the magic cloud robe, which had followed him for many years, was twisted into 4 clouds by the crack that extended behind him at the last moment and was immediately swallowed. Almost a day had passed. The 8 broken heavens caves, which had been barely maintained, had become more and more unstable because of the entry of Lu Ping and the others. Just a moment ago, Lu Ping had encountered such a spatial collapse. Now, in Lu Ping's divine sense, the area in front of him was full of spatial cracks, like a huge mouth that could not be filled, waiting for prey to pass by. In desperation, Lu Ping had to take the long way around, and it took him an hour to reach the second mountain peak. The spirit array of this mountain peak extended directly to the foot of the mountain. There was a small spiritual medicine hall here. When Lu Ping entered, he suddenly felt that his divine sense was under some kind of restriction. Everything behind him became chaotic under the perception of his divine sense. Lu Ping opened a scroll on a table in the middle of the spiritual medicine hall, only to see hundreds of words written on it. It was the test content written by the alchemy grandmaster who had left behind the inheritance. Lu Ping couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Just as he put down the scroll, hundreds of well-preserved spirit herbs suddenly appeared on the small table in front of him. Each spirit herb had a different age and type. Lu Ping had to identify 2/3 of the spirit herbs without using his divine sense within the time it took for an incense stick to burn. There were countless exotic flowers and herbs in the cultivation world. No alchemist dared to boast that they could recognize all of them. This test seemed simple, but it was actually extremely difficult. Even if he passed the test, Lu Ping would only get a few hundred spirit herbs. Therefore, disappointment was inevitable. Every time he identified the age and name of a medicinal herb, the seal that imprisoned this spiritual herb would automatically be unlocked. This was considered as Lu Ping's reward. Jinling flower, 500 years old spirit grass, flying frost leaf, 500 years old spirit grass. Is this Luo Jia grass, or 1,000 years old spirit grass? Lu Ping identified them one by one, and found that among these hundreds of spirit grasses, half were 500 years old spirit grasses, the rest were 100 years old spirit grasses, and there were more than 100,000 years old spirit grasses. Lu Ping even found 3,000 years old spirit grasses. Unfortunately, he only recognized one of them, and did not recognize the other two. When the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Lu Ping finally selected all the spirit grasses that he could recognize. Of the 700 different kinds of spirit grasses, Lu Ping only recognized about 500, barely reaching the standard of 2/3. Of the 200 spirit grasses that had not yet been recognized by Lu Ping, at least half of them were 1,000 years old, and there were even 5 spirit grasses that were 3,000 years old, which made Lu Ping very annoyed. At this time, the seal on the surface of the remaining 200 or so spirit grasses was also lifted, and under the surprised eyes of Lu Ping, the surface of this ordinary table suddenly became as smooth as a mirror, and a picture of the spirit grasses flashed on it, and below it were the names of these spirit grasses, medicinal value, and so on. Most of the spirit grasses recorded were more than 1,000 years old, and many of them were rare spirit grasses that Lu Ping had never heard of before. The 700 or so spirit grasses used for the test were all recorded in the picture on the table. Lu Ping felt as if he had obtained a treasure. This was an important accumulation for the advancement of Lu Ping's alchemy skills. He quickly put away the table and all the spirit grasses on it, and then the spirit array that imprisoned Lu Ping's divine sense suddenly loosened, and a small transmission array suddenly appeared on the floor of the spiritual medicine hall. As long as Lu Ping activated the array, he could be transmitted to the next test location on this mountain peak. Lu Ping resisted the temptation and left the spiritual medicine hall, hurrying towards the third mountain peak. This time, things went smoothly. Lu Ping didn't encounter any more obstacles along the way. But as soon as he arrived at the third mountain and entered a cave dwelling next to the array formation, 2 people attacked him with a pestle and a flaming fan. One of them was a pestle, while the other was a flaming fan. Lu Ping's divine sense did not detect them at all, and the 2 people charging at him were obviously in the late blood condensation realm. Although he was caught off guard, Lu Ping did not put their attacks in his eyes. The water curtain sky pillar was quickly activated by Lu Ping, forming a faint golden water curtain around his body that emitted a silvery light. The pestle only left ripples on the water curtain, but the person holding the pestle was pushed back by Lu Ping's divine sense. The other flaming fan waved, and a wave of fire surged out from it, quickly wrapping around Lu Ping. However, a series of sizzling sounds could be heard. The fire wave came fast, but it was extinguished even faster. The water curtain sky pillar expanded and shrunk, and the fire wave was completely extinguished. At this moment, Lu Ping finally saw clearly that the 2 people in front of him were not 2 people, but 2 puppets. The 2 puppets missed their attack, but retreated to the side of the cave and stopped moving. Lu Ping looked at the 2 puppets in shock. Could these be the pounding boys and fire boys that pill refiners often used? The process of alchemy was meticulous and time-consuming. Even an alchemist would find it troublesome. There were some steps, such as selecting spirit herbs, crushing herbs, looking after the furnace, and other less important tasks. Alchemists would hand them over to these boys. These boys were mostly alchemy apprentices. If they wanted to become alchemists, this was a training process that they had to go through. However, some alchemists were eccentric and unwilling to come into contact with others. They were also unwilling to waste their time on such trivial matters. Thus, objects like puppet boys were created. Puppets that performed such complicated and meticulous tasks might not have high battle prowess, but the difficulty of creating them was extremely high. This cave dwelling was obviously a furnishings of an alchemy room, but the alchemy furnace was nowhere to be seen. The surrounding spirit herb cabinets and alchemy boxes were also empty. On the side where the alchemy furnace was placed, there was a futon with a jade slip placed on it. Lu Ping stretched out his hand to take a look. Inside the jade slip was the method of making battle pills. Lu Ping shattered the mat. Inside, there were 10 well-preserved spiritual herbs and a jade box. Lu Ping did not use these spiritual herbs to make battle pills. Instead, he took out a light golden pill from his storage ring. Then, he tore the seal on the surface of the jade box and opened it. An emerald green pill soared into the sky, then suddenly expanded. A vine net suddenly appeared above Lu Ping, covering Lu Ping. Then, the vine net tightened, as if it wanted to strangle Lu Ping to death. Unhurriedly, Lu Ping crushed the light golden pill. A silver and golden light enveloped Lu Ping, firmly pushing the vine net outside. Then, the light became bigger and bigger. Finally, the vine net burst open. Lu Ping chuckled and put away the spiritual herbs on the mat. Then, he used his divine sense to communicate with the two puppets. He stretched out his hand and flicked 2 drops of blood into the eyes of the 2 puppet boys. Then, he handed the 2 puppets dozens of mid-grade spirit stones. The 2 puppets swallowed the spirit stones one by one. Their originally stiff limbs immediately became flexible. Lu Ping instructed the 2 puppet boys to adapt for a moment. Then, he took the medicine pestle and the flame fan in their hands and examined them carefully. The medicine pestle was only a high-grade magic tool. Although it had a certain effect on stimulating the medicinal properties of spiritual herbs when pounding medicine, it was not very obvious. Lu Ping directly threw this high-grade magic tool into his storage ring. Then, he placed the medicine pestle he obtained from the 7-star skies in the hands of the medicine puppet. The most important function of this magic tool was its ability to stimulate the medicinal properties of spiritual herbs. Previously, Lu Ping did not have powerful defensive means. Now that Lu Ping had the golden scale sword and the natal gentian formation, this magic tool could be considered to have returned to its proper use. The flaming fan in the fire-burning puppet's hand was a top-grade magic tool. The most important function of this magic tool was that it could seal a fire seed within it. It could be used to control the power of the fire during pill refinement, and it could also be used in battle against enemies. Lu Ping looked at the fire seed sealed on the fan. It was just a mid-grade fire seed. Lu Ping had sealed the Crimson Nightmare fire and the other fire seeds he collected in the Grotto Heaven in the fan. However, Lu Ping had other uses for the Dark Prison Poison fire, so it would be a waste to seal it in an ordinary flame fan. After a total of 5 fire seeds were sealed in it, the originally yellowish fan was suddenly stained with a layer of red. Lu Ping refined the flame fan. With the nourishment of Lu Ping's magic power, the flame fan shone brightly. However, this fan was not compatible with the cultivation method that Lu Ping cultivated. After thinking about it, Lu Ping stuffed the flame fan into the fire boy's hands. Then, Lu Ping put away the 2 puppets and left the cave without looking back. When Lu Ping arrived at the 4th mountain, his clothes were torn in several places. The golden armor inside was also damaged in several places. There were also a few blood scabs on his body. If it was not for the fact that Lu Ping's body was far stronger than ordinary cultivators, he would not have been injured in these few places. Clearly, Lu Ping had encountered another spatial collapse on his way here. A day and a half had passed and the cave was becoming more and more unstable. The test area of the 4th mountain was surrounded by a light barrier that was different from an array. Lu Ping searched for a long time but could not find a way in. Seeing that the time was getting longer and longer, Lu Ping made up his mind. He raised the netherwater sword and slashed at the light barrier. The light barrier shook and became a little dimmer. Seeing that there was a way in, Lu Ping simply sprayed out more than 300 sword lights and used the 1 chi sword art. A 9-meter-long sword chi slashed at the light barrier. The light barrier shook a few times and finally shattered. A jade slip flew out and Lu Ping held it in his hand. However, when he entered the area covered by the light barrier, he saw a path leading straight to the top of the mountain. That was it. He didn't expect the test to be so simple, and the only reward he got was this jade slip. Feeling a little depressed, Lu Ping checked the jade slip and smiled in satisfaction. Chapter 283. Meridian Strengthening Pill, it's actually this good stuff. Lu Ping looked at the jade scroll in his hand. It was the recipe for the Meridian Strengthening Pill. Essence Expanding Pill, Meridian Strengthening Pill, and Pure Blood Pill. These were the 3 best pills for blood condensation realm cultivators to strengthen their foundations and prepare to advance to the core forging realm. Lu Ping had already obtained the essence-expanding pill. Originally, he was thinking about how to get the other two recipes from the Northern Alliance. Now, only the recipe for the pure blood pill was left. However, Lu Ping remembered that after he entered the top 32 of the elixir gathering, he still had one more chance to choose a recipe. Although it was for choosing a recipe for a core forging realm pill, he believed that the Northern Alliance would agree to exchange this opportunity for the pure blood pill's recipe. In a hall at the foot of the fifth mountain, Lu Ping walked out with a gloomy face. No one knew what signal he released, but after a cup of tea's time, there was a buzzing sound from afar. Purple bees the size of a child's fist flew over. One by one, they were put into the Qian Zhong Su instrument by Lu Ping. After all the purple crystal bees had entered the instrument, Lu Ping noticed that there were less than 20 purple crystal bees. They must have been swallowed by the spatial crack in the grotto heaven. Fortunately, in the past 2 days, more than 200 purple crystal bees had all advanced to the third rank of the blood refining realm. There were also a few that broke through to the fourth rank. He believed that after a period of time, more purple crystal bees would break through to the fourth rank. De Bao came out of nowhere with a small storage pouch hanging from his neck. It was filled with a mess of things. Lu Ping took a look, but most of them were things that didn't catch his eye. However, a few seeds in a jade box caught Lu Ping's interest. Lu Ping put De Bao into the spirit beast pouch, turned around, and entered the hall again. This last test stumped Lu Ping. Golden Essence Pill. Pill for the core forging realm. Lu Ping's last test was to refine a pill for the core forging stage, even though it was the easiest pill for the core forging stage. Although Lu Ping had achieved a 60% success rate when he concocted the essence-expanding pellets, he had already touched the threshold of core forging realm medicinal pellets and become a grandmaster alchemist. But the difference in spirit herbs was only 26,000-year-old spirit herbs and 27,000-year-old spirit herbs. But in reality, the difference was like the distance between heaven and earth. One of the most crucial factors was true essence. After a cultivator advanced to the core forging stage, the magic power within their body would transform into a higher level form. Among the pills used to promote the cultivation of core forging Taoist masters, this factor became indispensable. In the end, the most direct goal of a core forging Taoist master's cultivation was to strengthen the body's true essence. Therefore, in the cultivation world, most cultivators who became an alchemist master only reached the core forging stage. Of course, this did not mean that it was impossible for a blood condensation realm cultivator to refine a core forging stage pill. It was just that this process would be extremely difficult because true essence was incomparable to magic power. This was also an important factor in the qualitative change between a core forging Taoist master and a blood condensation cultivator. If Lu Ping wanted to concoct a golden essence pellet, he would have to concentrate a large amount of his arcane energy into the medicinal pellet until the accumulated arcane energy could be condensed into a strand of true essence in the medicinal pellet. In the end, the medicinal pellet would undergo a qualitative change. It was just like how Lu Ping's divine sense had been cultivated by the soul expansion pellet and the soul splitting art. When Lu Ping's divine sense contracted, it would naturally produce a divine sense pressure. Now there was only a little more than a day left. Lu Ping was not confident that he could successfully refine a golden essence pill in the remaining time. Therefore, before refining, he took back the purple crystal bee and De Bao in advance, so that he would not be able to take care of them when the cave collapsed in the middle of refining. In terms of the quality of the fire seed, Chu Ting's high-grade alchemy furnace and bright yellow third-grade top-grade fire seed were even inferior to the black prison poisonous fire. The alchemist who left the inheritance on this mountain had prepared 3 sets of spiritual herbs for Lu Ping to refine a golden essence pill. In other words, Lu Ping only had 3 chances to pass the test. Although there were 3 sets of spiritual herbs, the medicinal properties of each spiritual herb were more or less. The balance of the medicinal properties of the spiritual herbs had to be rearranged. Otherwise, although it could still be refined, the alchemist would need to spend a lot of energy to balance the medicinal properties, and it would also cause a lot of waste. Lu Ping made up his mind and let the boy swallow an upper-grade spirit stone. Then, the boy took the magic pestle and carefully pounded the spiritual herbs that needed to be pounded. The magic pestle that emitted a spiritual light was really powerful. Lu Ping carefully looked at the mashed spiritual herbs and stimulated the medicinal power in the spiritual herbs. This could make the medicinal power of the spiritual herbs easier to condense during the alchemy process and reduce the difficulty of alchemy. Lu Ping placed 3 spare upper-grade spirit stones in the alchemy furnace in case something went wrong during the alchemy process. At this time, Lu Ping was not in the mood to think about waste, extravagance, and the rewards after a fluke. If he could really successfully refine a golden essence pill this time, it would be a milestone for him in alchemy. Even if he used up all the upper-grade spirit stones in his hands, he would be willing. The first batch of elixirs soon reached the stage of condensing. However, there were 2 consecutive explosions. Before Lu Ping could react, 2 of the 3 condensed spiritual liquids in the alchemy furnace were wasted. Lu Ping hurriedly detonated a prepared upper-grade spirit stone in the alchemy furnace. However, it was still a step too late. The last spiritual liquid had just condensed into a ball, but before it could solidify, it exploded and dispersed. The biggest reason was that the spiritual power was not condensed enough. The time was getting closer, and there was no time for Lu Ping to spend time to restore the consumed spiritual power. Lu Ping directly took out a triple transformation elixir and swallowed it, replenishing most of the consumed spiritual power. For the second batch of elixirs, Lu Ping was even more careful. Half of his spiritual power was spent on the final process of condensing the elixir. This time, Lu Ping deliberately condensed only 2 spiritual liquids at the end, so as to reduce the pressure of divine sense and the distribution of spiritual power. At least one of the 2 spiritual liquids had to be successfully condensed. At the last moment of condensing the elixir, Lu Ping detonated the 2 upper-grade spirit stones in one fell swoop. It happened to be the moment when the spiritual power in the alchemy furnace was absorbed. However, the exploding spiritual power was still not as fast as the absorption speed of the 2 spiritual liquids. Lu Ping decisively dispersed one of the spiritual liquids and gathered all the spiritual energy into the last one. The spiritual liquids quickly condensed and solidified. Lu Ping then opened the cauldron and a golden medicinal pellet escaped from its parents' care like a naughty child. It dashed out of the cauldron and ran out of the hall. Spiritual alchemy. This was the biggest feature of elixirs in the core forging realm. Lu Ping didn't have time to celebrate the achievement of becoming an alchemy master. After throwing the only golden elixir into the hall, 2 jade slips flew out from the back of the hall. Lu Ping didn't have time to check them, so he put them away. Just after Lu Ping reached the first test of the 5th inheritance, the great array that enveloped the 5 mountain peaks gave a loud bang, and directly formed a light curtain staircase on the surface of the array shield, directly leading to the valley in the center of the 5 mountain peaks. At the same time, as far as Lu Ping's eyes could see, the broken grotto heaven had begun to crumble. Patches of grass, trees, and hills suddenly disappeared, disintegrated, and broke apart. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. Lu Ping quickly passed through the light curtain staircase, and placed the array plate that he brought with him in the center of the huge array in the center of the valley. At the same time, he inserted more than 100 middle-grade spirit stones and 9 high-grade spirit stones into the array plate. The entire array plate suddenly lit up, and suddenly the array in the entire valley gave a loud bang, followed by the 5 mountain peaks shaking. Seeing that the array was completed, Lu Ping quickly tore a space talisman on his body, and once again formed a fluctuating mirror beside Lu Ping's body. Lu Ping's back foot had just left the valley, and the 5 mountain peaks seemed to be forcibly uprooted. They rose into the air, and suddenly disappeared without a trace. Then, the entire space was like a broken copper mirror, and suddenly turned into nothingness. Somewhere in the back mountain of Qianyuan Mountain, a dull sound spread for hundreds of miles. Except for a few people who knew the truth, the majority of cultivators thought that it was just a muffled thunder in the sky. And somewhere in Qianyuan Cave, as the 5 mountain peaks broke through the air and landed with a loud bang. Hong Yi Laozu, who was hiding somewhere, nodded in satisfaction and said, "Of the 8 places of inheritance, 6 came out intact. It's a pity for Zhou Chuang. Out of the 2 places of inheritance, he only managed to decipher 1. In the end, he could only save 7 places of inheritance. There's also a junior from the Purple Talisman Pavilion. Out of the 4 places of inheritance, he only managed to decipher 3. Useless." Somewhere in Qianyuan Cave, 34 mountain peaks stood in various postures. One after another, large arrays were set up, covering these mountain peaks in groups of 3 and 5. Such a fast speed of setting up the arrays was obviously the work of a famous person. However, from the beginning to the end, not a single person could be seen in Qianyuan Cave. Lu Ping came out of the dilapidated cave in ragged clothes, only to find that he was in Qianyuan Hall. This place, which had been refined into a cave treasure by the Northern Alliance, had turned back into a hall. In the hall, 7 alchemists, who were not much better off than him, were also in a sorry state, sizing each other up. Immortal Qin came out from the back of the hall with a smile and said, "Everyone, you have helped the Northern Alliance to recover a huge loss. I thank you on behalf of everyone in Qianyuan Mountain." Everyone said they did not dare. Immortal Qin smiled and said, "The other alchemists have already chosen the rewards for the top 32 and top 16. Everyone, follow me to the elixir building to choose elixir recipes. At the same time, everyone will have 3 days to figure out the elixir recipes left behind by the senior alchemists." At the entrance of Qianyuan Hall, Immortal Qin waved his hand towards the ground, and a teleportation array appeared on the ground. Looking at everyone's shocked expressions, Immortal Qin smiled and said, "The elixir building is an important place for the Northern Alliance. It is also one of the places of inheritance of the Northern Alliance. Everyone can go through the teleportation array and arrive at the elixir building directly. The true location of the places of inheritance naturally could not be revealed to others." Chapter 284. In a huge pavilion in the sky, Lu Ping and the other 7 people were carefully searching for something in a room with thousands of jade slips. This was only the place where the Northern Alliance collected the recipes for half-step core forging pills. This was obviously a space formed by a spatial magic item like the 1000-bell millet. It was not like the Heaven Yuan Hall or the Purple Moon Hoop, which were formed by magic treasures. Lu Ping asked Qin Jinren about the location of the pure blood pills recipe. He didn't care about other people knowing and hurriedly followed Qin Jinren's instructions to find the recipe for the pure blood pill. "If I were you, I would change the recipe." Lu Ping raised his head in surprise, only to see Yu Jiangrui standing beside him in a stupefied manner. "What do you mean?" Yu Jiangrui threw a jade slip over and said, "This is the reward I got from Ziyue Cave Heaven." Lu Ping took it and looked at it. It was the recipe for the pure blood pill. He thought for a while and suddenly understood. "You still want to gamble and see if you can advance to the core forging stage?" Yu Jiangrui wasn't affected in the slightest when Lu Ping saw through his thoughts. He said, "That's right. Everyone has the essence expanding pellets recipe in their hands. You came out to look for the pure blood pellets recipe, but it seems you already have the meridian toughening pellets recipe. Since I'm your servant, it's my duty to remind you not to waste this opportunity." Lu Ping smiled and said, "All right, I'll give you the meridian toughening pellets recipe. But this way, I won't be able to choose any of the pellets in the pavilion for the time being. You're experienced and knowledgeable, so do you have any suggestions? It would be best if it's a recipe that can help me advance to the core forging realm." Yu Jiangrui didn't expect Lu Ping to ask him for advice. In his eyes, young people who achieved so much at Lu Ping's age were all arrogant. He had been defeated by Lu Ping and had been a servant for 10 years. Yu Jiangrui was prepared to be ridiculed and even tortured. He didn't expect Lu Ping to treat him as an equal and even speak politely. Yu Jiangrui was startled. He saw Lu Ping looking at him with a smile, so he pretended to cough to hide his embarrassment. He said, How do you plan on advancing to the core forging stage? I mean the last step, perfecting your blood. This was Yu Jiangrui's test. Although perfecting a cultivator's blood was not necessarily a secret, it was still annoying to pry into someone else's secrets. I have a golden pill. Lu Ping still had a smile on his face. Hiss. Yu Jiangrui tried his best to hide the shock on his face so that other cultivators wouldn't notice. At the same time, he was shocked that Lu Ping had revealed his secret so easily. Yu Jiangrui thought for a moment and said, maybe there is a pill recipe that will help you. Golden blood condensing pill. Under Yu Jiangrui's guidance, Lu Ping found a strange half-step core forging recipe in the elixir pavilion. When a peak blood condensation cultivator refined a golden pill, it would be the last time they would perfect their bloodline and advance to the core forging stage. Because the golden pill contained a large amount of bloodline essence and spiritual energy, a blood condensation cultivator would usually advance to the core forging stage without fully refining it. Even if they fully refined it, it would cause a huge waste during the process of merging the bloodline. The gold transformation blood condensing pill was designed to deal with this situation. The gold transformation blood condensing pill condensed the bloodline essence, true essence, and spiritual power in a golden core were diluted and divided into 10 portions. Then, a cultivator could take these 10 pills one by one to advance to the core forging stage, reducing the huge waste caused by directly taking a golden core. At the same time, during the process of swallowing the pill, even if a cultivator could advance to the core forging stage without swallowing 10 pills, the remaining pills could be used to strengthen the foundation of the core forging stage. This way, there would be less waste. Lu Ping was confident that his arcane energy was abundant and his foundation was solid. Directly refining the golden core would minimize the loss of spiritual energy. The last 2 times he perfected his bloodline, he refined the congealed blood beads that were one stage higher than him before he completed his bloodline refinement. However, this time was different. Not only was enlightened Master Jin Li at the second layer of the core forging stage, but he was also a cultivator with abundant magic energy and a solid foundation. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape from the Eastern Sea's enlightened masters in the perished mystic realm. Many of them were enlightened masters whose cultivation was far higher than his. Lu Ping didn't have enough confidence that he could completely refine enlightened Master Jin Li's golden pill. Several days later, Lu Ping and Yu Jiangrui, who had gained a lot from observing the insights of the Northern Alliance's past alchemists, returned to the cave residence they rented in Qianyuan City. However, on the way back, Yu Jiangrui was suspicious of Immortal Qin's attitude towards Lu Ping before they left the pill pavilion. That wasn't the tone of a senior giving advice to a junior, but a polite greeting between cultivators of the same level. When he thought about the many mysteries surrounding Lu Ping, Yu Jiangrui began to be suspicious of Lu Ping's identity. Lu Ping found it funny that Yu Jiangrui wanted to say something along the way. Lu Ping, who was smart, naturally guessed what Yu Jiangrui wanted to ask. Every move of Lu Ping and the others in Ziyue Cave Heaven was indeed under the nose of Hongye Laozu and Immortal Qin. The successful refining of the Jinyuan pill did not go unnoticed by the two of them. A blood condensation realm alchemist was naturally qualified to be on equal footing with Immortal Qin. Immortal Qin even deliberately approached Lu Ping as if he was trying to rope him in advance. As long as Lu Ping did not die prematurely, he was definitely a strong candidate to become an alchemist grandmaster. However, Lu Ping would obviously maintain his inscrutable aura and turned a blind eye to Yu Jiangrui's expression. Hong Ying and Wu Yan had already heard about the situation of this elixir gathering. They were shocked by the performance of this young master in the elixir gathering. Now, in Qianyuan City, many cultivators were talking about the cauldron-smashing agreement between Yu Jiangrui and Lu Ping. The two of them were already standing at the entrance of the cave residence, waiting for Lu Ping's return. Seeing Yu Jiangrui behind Lu Ping, their expressions changed slightly. Obviously, the news of Yu Jiangrui being a servant for 10 years had spread throughout Qianyuan City. As for the position of this alchemist servant in Lu Ping's group, Hong Ying and Wu Yan obviously had not figured it out yet. How could their thoughts escape Lu Ping's eyes? Lu Ping directly pointed at Yu Jiangrui behind him and said, "This is old Yu. I believe you have heard that in the next 10 years, old Yu will be the chief alchemist of our Listen Waves Island." After entering the cave residence, they saw Qi Lianying lazily leaning on a rattan chair. Seeing Lu Ping come in, Qi Lianying threw a storage bag over and said, "This is Sister Xiao Zhu's father's gift of thanks to you. He also wanted me to remind you not to miss Sister Xiao Zhu's apprenticeship ceremony." Lu Ping took the storage bag and smiled, "It just so happens that I also need to borrow Miss Chu Ting's help. This time, I must go." After saying that, Lu Ping took the storage bag and looked inside. There were actually 10 high-grade spirit stones on one side. For a medium-sized force like the Li family, 10 high-grade spirit stones was not a small gift. Lu Ping turned around and handed the storage bag to Yu Jiangrui and said, "Do you need it?" Yu Jiangrui looked at the 10 spirit stones inside and hesitated for a moment, but then he directly took out 5 of them. High-grade spirit stones were quite useful for alchemists. Lu Ping looked at Yu Jiangrui's actions and smiled. He didn't say anything. After putting away the remaining 5 spirit stones, he took the spiritual herbs that Hong Ying and Wu Yan bought during the Qianyuan City Pill gathering and handed them to Yu Jiangrui, saying, "You can refine as many late blood condensation pills as you see fit." After arranging the recent plans to Hong Ying and Wu Yan, Lu Ping returned to the cultivation room and took out 2 jade slips from his storage ring. These were the rewards Lu Ping received after passing the final test in Ziyue Cave Heaven. Lu Ping immersed his divine sense into the first jade slip. It recorded a secret technique used in the process of alchemy, spirit explosion technique. This was a method used by an alchemist to save the elixir when the elixir furnace was lacking in spiritual energy during the process of alchemy and the elixir was about to explode. For example, when Lu Ping was concocting golden essence pellets, the cauldron's spiritual energy was too thin due to his lack of arcane energy. The first cauldron of golden essence pellets was completely destroyed, and the second cauldron also had to explode 2 high-grade spirit stones before he barely managed to concoct a single golden essence pellet. However, the method of shattering spirit stones was too wasteful for an alchemist. 70 to 80% of the spirit stones would evaporate. Not only could the spirit explosion art explode a spirit stone in a very short period of time, but it could also confine the spirit chi within a certain range for a short period of time, preventing the spirit chi from evaporating. This way, it could easily solve the problem of lacking and wasting spirit chi during the alchemy process. Lu Ping delightedly studied the jade slip that recorded the spirit explosion technique, then picked up the second jade slip to check. It was a very familiar and huge restriction secret technique that made Lu Ping's divine sense unable to explore it. This was a treasure restriction. However, this treasure restriction was much bigger, more sophisticated, and more complicated than the 2 treasure restrictions that Lu Ping was preparing to use to upgrade his natal Dharma treasure. Needless to say, this treasure restriction was even bigger than the 2 treasure restrictions that Lu Ping was preparing to use to upgrade his natal Dharma treasure. This was actually a treasure restriction for a pill furnace. Lu Ping sucked in a breath of cold air. Needless to say, in the entire North Sea, only Xianling sect had a treasure restriction engraved on it. This was also one of the important means that Xianling sect had been able to suppress Xinling. With this treasure restriction in hand, Xianling sect's supply of pills to high-level cultivators obviously surpassed Xinling. Lu Ping originally thought that obtaining the Na Chuan cauldron was already a great opportunity for him. He did not expect that he would have the opportunity to upgrade it to a Dharma treasure. Chapter 285. Just as Lu Ping was looking forward to upgrading the Na Chuan cauldron into a transcendent artifact, he heard Qi Lianying shouting loudly from outside the cultivation room, little Lu, there's an esteemed guest here. Don't blame me for not warning you." Lu Ping felt helpless when Qi Lianying kept calling him Little Lu. He didn't know why Qi Lianying had come up with such a form of address. However, from Qi Lianying's shouting, it was obvious that some rare guest had arrived. This made Lu Ping even more curious. After exiting the cave, Lu Ping couldn't help but stare blankly at the two people in front of him. Lu Xiaoyu, do you still know the old man? An old man with his hands behind his back looked at Lu Ping with a smile. Behind him was a long-necked youth, Wan Yu, who was curiously looking at Lu Ping's cave. The old man in front of him was Yan Wujiu, who was on equal footing with Hongyi Laozu in the Pill Association. Lu Ping suppressed the shock in his heart and hurriedly stepped forward. I didn't know Senior Yan Wujiu was coming. Please forgive me for not going out to greet you. Yan Wujiu laughed. Our Ya race is really too lazy to get used to the false courtesy of you humans. This time, however, there's something that I need little brother's help with. I wonder if little brother has the time. Lu Ping's heart tightened. He really didn't know how a mere blood condensation cultivator like him could help this senior. However, he still respectfully invited the old man and the youth into the cave. Hong Ying and Wu Yan were already dumbfounded when they heard the old man say that he was a Yao cultivator. Even Yu Jiangrui, who was standing at the side, was shocked when he saw Yan Wujiu's arrival. Yan Wujiu seriously tasted the spiritual tea in the black bamboo cup. After savoring the taste for a while, he said, although it's a high-grade spiritual tea, with the addition of amethyst honey, the taste, the spiritual energy, and the effects are all comparable to top-grade spiritual tea. Lu Ping hurriedly said, Senior, you flatter me. Yan Wujiu put down the teacup in his hand and pointed at Wan Yu. We Yao cultivators are straightforward. The old man has come to entrust my disciple to you for the time being. What do you think, little brother? Lu Ping blankly looked at Yan Wujiu, then looked at the long-necked youth beside him. The youth was also looking at Lu Ping curiously. Lu Ping's first reaction was to refuse, but after a moment of deliberation, he said, I don't know what senior means, but brother Wan Yu is a genius in alchemy. He's the object of many people's worship. Why do you need to entrust him? He, it is indeed a fight, but it is not an offering, it is a slaughter. Yan Wujiu ignored Lu Ping's question and asked instead, little brother, do you have a blue phoenix? Lu Ping knew that Lu Qin had appeared at the pill gathering, but he didn't know what this had to do with Yan Wujiu. He immediately turned around and shouted towards the cultivation room. Lu Qin, who was singing on the peach tree of the 1,000-bell millet, heard Lu Ping's shout and flew out. Wan Yu's eyes lit up as she looked at Lu Qin. Lu Qin landed on Lu Ping's shoulder and shouted, Haha, I know you. I know you. You're a Wan too. Lu Ping looked at Wan Yu with some amazement, only to see Wan Yu giggle foolishly. Soon after, his mouth actually let out the same call as Lu Qin. Lu Qin was overjoyed and also began to chirp. In a short moment, the two birds were chatting passionately. The entire cave was filled with the sounds of the two. Lu Ping didn't think that the shy youth who always stayed behind Yan Wujiu would be so talkative. Yan Wujiu also rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. But looking at his gratified expression, he was obviously very satisfied that Wan Yu and Lu Qin could communicate happily. With a wave of his hand, he threw Lu Qin and Wan Yu into the courtyard outside the cave, leaving the two monsters to interact. Yan Wujiu turned to Lu Ping and said with a smile, I didn't think that these two children would be able to play together. This old man is quite relieved. Lu Ping silently cursed. He hadn't even agreed yet, but Yan Wujiu was already relieved. Clearly, he had to take Wan Yu in, even if he didn't want to. Yan Wujiu saw the expression on Lu Ping's face. How could he not know what Lu Ping was thinking? He said, that little one of yours is obviously the descendant of the Wind Wan clan and my Fire Wan clan. However, this little Wan is a bit strange. Normally, the descendants of these two clans are born with extremely poor aptitude. Moreover, the Wind Wan clan is already the worst among the Wan clan. However, this little Wan's aptitude is quite high. In just a few decades, she has already reached the peak of the blood condensation realm. Although she can't compare to a top-level demonic beast, she isn't far from it. However, However, if she continues to cultivate based on instinct, after she reaches the core forging realm, it will be difficult for her to completely unlock the Fire One clan's inherited memories. Even if she unlocks them, what she gains will be extremely little. Lu Ping asked in shock, Lu Qin can actually unlock the inherited memories? Isn't this something that only demonic beasts have, and it should only be unlocked and they reach the blood condensation realm? Yan Wujiu looked at Lu Ping with appreciation and said, naturally, but there are exceptions. For example, this little wand situation is one of them. I can pass on a secret art to her and give her some pointers. This way, after she reaches the core forging realm, the inherited memories of the Fire One clan will be much more complete. Lu Ping's expression fluctuated. After a while, he said, Junior is naturally grateful that Senior can give little Lu Qin pointers. But why did Senior entrust Brother Wanyu to me? Could it be that with Senior's care, Brother Wanyu will be in danger? If that is the case, how can Junior protect Brother Wanyu? 3 days later, Yan Wujiu silently left Lu Ping's cave dwelling. Inside the 1,000-bell millet, there were only 2 small birds bouncing and playing on top of the peach tree. The smaller one would often sing on top of the peach tree. Lu Ping strictly ordered Wu Yan and the others not to tell anyone about Yan Wujiu's arrival. Qi Lianying didn't need Lu Ping's instructions. She directly said, I know what you want to say, don't worry. Li Xiuzhu's discipleship ceremony was held in the listening villa. On this day, Lu Ping interrupted his cultivation and went to watch the ceremony with Qi Lianying. In front of the listening villa, Li Maolin and Chu Ting were in charge of receiving the guests. Seeing Lu Ping and Qi Lianying arrive, Li Maolin's eyes brightened. He hurriedly went forward and said, Brother Lu is a great talent. My Li family has received a lot of help from Brother Lu in this pill gathering. I am extremely grateful that Brother Lu has come to attend my daughter's discipleship ceremony. Lu Ping smiled and said, Patriarch Li is too serious. This pill gathering is all thanks to Miss Chu Ting's pill furnace fire seed. Junior was fortunate enough to be able to compete with the elite alchemists of the various sections. I must thank Miss Chu Ting for not holding grudges against me and helping me. Chu Ting was originally thinking about how to phrase her greetings with Lu Ping. When she heard Lu Ping actually say this, she immediately smiled and said, Since you want to thank me, you should also show your sincerity. How about this, Junior Sister Li is about to become a disciple. Did you bring a congratulatory gift? There was no such thing as giving congratulatory gifts to those who attended the ceremony. On the contrary, the disciple who became a disciple often owed some favors to the cultivators who came to attend the ceremony. Li Maolin was afraid that Lu Ping was not prepared. He was about to find an excuse for him to avoid falling into an awkward situation when he heard Lu Ping say with a smile, It just so happens that I have a gift to give here. It's a congratulatory gift for Miss Li to become a disciple of Listening Villa Plum Cultivator. Li Maolin was about to decline, but Chu Ting took it. She opened it and took a look. She said, Brother Lu is really thoughtful. But then she asked in a low voice with some surprise, Is this newly refined by Brother Lu? Li Maolin heard Chu Ting's voice was strange. He took the jade box in her hand and looked at it. He saw a pill shining with golden light sealed in it. If it was not a golden yuan pill, what was it? Li Maolin immediately thought of something and sucked in a breath of cold air. He quickly resealed the jade box and looked at Lu Ping in shock. He asked, Brother Lu, did you just forge this recently? Lu Ping smiled and said, It's just a fluke. Li Maolin naturally knew the significance of this pill. This was the first pill refined by Lu Ping after he became an alchemy grandmaster. Lu Ping did not disclose his achievement of becoming an alchemy grandmaster, but he did not hide it from the Li family. This was also a disguised act of goodwill by Lu Ping. Li Maolin naturally knew what an alchemy grandmaster's goodwill meant. Of course, Lu Ping also had his own ideas. Chu Ting had once proposed that after Lu Ping reached the core forging stage, he would launch a competition against the Wang family and the Crystal Palace, intending to expel the Wang family's forces from the fallen secret land and replace them with Lu Ping. However, Lu Ping himself knew that if he did not have any strength, he would not be able to gain a foothold in the fallen secret land even if he expelled the Wang family. At that time, he would have to rely on the support of the boudoir. In that case, the forces he established on Hearing Waves Island would inevitably be at the mercy of the boudoir. In that case, Lu Ping would become the external force of the boudoir. If Lu Ping had enough strength, he would be able to fight for more freedom and initiative in the cooperation with the boudoir. In this way, Lu Ping would be able to fight for an equal cooperative relationship as much as possible, instead of being under the leadership and control of the boudoir. A golden yuan pill and the identity of an alchemy grandmaster undoubtedly increased the bargaining chips on Lu Ping's side. More cultivators came from afar. After returning the high-grade pill furnace and fire seed to Chu Ting, Lu Ping walked in alone. Qi Lianying stayed behind to greet the guests with Chu Ting. At the same time, the two of them chattered on. Looking at Lu Ping's back, Li Maolin was startled and said, "This kid is really not simple." Chu Ting, who was talking to Qi Lianying, heard this and the arrogance on her face faded. She paused and said, "I'm not as good as him." This surprised Qi Lianying and Li Maolin. Chu Ting, who was always arrogant, rarely put her peers in her eyes. When Lu Ping entered the small building, there were already more than 10 guests inside. However, most of them were core forging enlightened masters. Even if there were 2 or 3 blood condensation cultivators, they were junior disciples who followed the core forging enlightened masters to see the world. Naturally, a blood condensation cultivator like Lu Ping was very eye-catching. However, after the pill gathering, Lu Ping's reputation in Qianyuan City was resounding. Most of the enlightened masters present were representatives of the various forces in Qianyuan City, so they were naturally well informed. For a cultivator like Lu Ping, after advancing to the core forging realm, becoming an alchemy grandmaster was simply a piece of cake. Therefore, not only did no cultivators express dissatisfaction with Lu Ping's arrival, many cultivators even smiled at Lu Ping to express their goodwill. Chapter 286. As more and more enlightened masters arrived, Lu Ping was amazed by the communication skills of the listening master. This enlightened master Plum was obviously not in the boudoir identity, but she still had such rallying power in Qianyuan City. This made Lu Ping look forward to meeting this mysterious enlightened master Plum. There were actually 2 kinds of ceremonies. One was like Lu Ping, who was invited by the Li clan to watch the apprenticeship ceremony. However, most of the enlightened masters in the small building were obviously here for the mysterious enlightened master Plum. They were here to watch the apprenticeship ceremony. At this moment, 3 charming women came down from the upper floor of the listening master Plum. All the enlightened masters in the hall stood up to greet the 3 women. Only then did Lu Ping know that the 3 women were enlightened master Plum's disciples. Moreover, their cultivations were all above the core forging stage. This made Lu Ping speechless. After the 3 women had settled the enlightened masters in the hall, Li Xiuzhu had already walked in with the help of a middle-aged beauty dressed in black. There were 2 other enlightened masters with them, but they were all acquaintances of Lu Ping. One was enlightened Master Qin of the Northern Alliance, and the other was Yan Wujiu, who had just left a few days ago. A few days ago, Yan Wujiu said that the reason he had come to Qianyuan City this time, other than to find someone to entrust Luan Yu to, was because he had received an invitation from an old friend. Participating in the pill gathering was just a coincidence, and he had come here on a whim. Now it seemed that the old friend who had invited him was this mysterious middle-aged beauty, enlightened Master Plum. Enlightened Master Qin and Yan Wujiu obviously didn't expect to meet Lu Ping here. Enlightened Master Qin was able to think of something because of Hongye Laozu's hint, but Yan Wujiu was a little surprised. However, he was an old fox after all, and this trace of surprise was only a flash in his eyes. Chu Ting, Li Maolin, and the others also returned to the hall. The ceremony of Li Xiuju's apprenticeship ceremony could begin now that all the spectators had arrived. At this moment, Master Mei, Master Qin, and Yan Wujiu, who were sitting at the head of the hall, suddenly looked towards the outside of the small building. Naturally, their strange behavior could not be hidden from the other masters in the hall. Even Lu Ping was slightly surprised. Could it be that there were uninvited guests coming to cause trouble? A gust of wind blew in. Lu Ping didn't notice that there was a skinny middle-aged man in the hall. What a brilliant wind movement technique! The sudden appearance of the middle-aged man had clearly shocked all the spiritual masters in the hall. Spiritual Master Qin, who was seated at the head of the table, had a serious expression on his face. On the other side, Yan Wujiu was also somewhat surprised. Clearly, they had sensed that the newcomer's strength was very high, and they didn't know whether he was a friend or a foe. Immortal Plum sat in the middle and looked at the man standing in the middle of the hall with a calm expression, as if he didn't exist. The first female disciple, who was standing next to Immortal Plum, suddenly became happy when she saw the arrival of the cultivator in the hall. Her lips moved as if she was about to greet him, but then she thought of something and looked at the indifferent master sitting at the head of the table. She had no choice but to swallow the words that were on the tip of her mouth. All of this naturally couldn't be hidden from the middle-aged man in the hall. He nodded to the female disciple, and then smiled at Immortal Plum. "I haven't seen you for decades, but you're still as elegant as ever." Immortal Plum raised his eyelids and said, "Find a place to sit when you're here. Don't interfere with my disciple's apprenticeship ceremony." This mysterious man who had suddenly appeared obviously had an extraordinary relationship with Immortal Plum. The middle-aged man's body was surging with true yuan. The wind movement technique he had just used made all the masters in the hall feel ashamed of their inferiority. It was obvious that this middle-aged man was an expert at the late stage of the core forging realm. For a moment, the spiritual masters in the hall paid more attention to the small building. The weight of a late-stage core forging realm master was still very important to the forces behind these spiritual masters. Immortal Qin frowned slightly. However, when he thought about Hongye Laozu's words, this Immortal Plum was obviously not as simple as he appeared on the surface. Yan Wujiu, who was at the side, seemed to have thought of something. The middle-aged man didn't care about Immortal Plum's indifference. He turned around and saw that most of the seats in the hall were already occupied by the spiritual masters of the various families. There were only a few tables and chairs in the corner. So, he walked to the corner and sat down. He even smiled at Lu Ping, who was beside him. At this time, although Lu Ping looked calm on the surface, he was quite excited in his heart. Following the wind into the night, silently moistening everything. The apprenticeship ceremony continued. Li Xiuju presented the apprenticeship gifts, which were 10 high-grade spirit stones and 100,000-year-old spiritual herbs. Obviously, these gifts were much more valuable than the gifts that Lu Ping and the others received when they were still in the blood condensation realm. However, it was also in line with Li Xiuju's identity as a core forging realm master. Next, Immortal Plum's 3 female disciples and Chu Ting's group of 4 each gave a greeting gift to the new 6th junior martial sister. Among them, the first female disciple to greet the middle-aged cultivator was Immortal Plum's second disciple. She took out 2 gifts and said that they were gifts for the eldest senior martial sister whom she had never met before. Daoist Plum snorted, clearly unhappy. However, he didn't stop his second disciple. Instead, it was the middle-aged cultivator sitting beside Lu Ping who chuckled in a low voice. In the end, Immortal Plum directly gave Li Xiuju a magic treasure flying sword as a greeting gift, which shocked all the spiritual masters present. Lu Ping watched the whole process of the apprenticeship ceremony. It was almost a replica of his own apprenticeship ceremony. He couldn't help but feel puzzled. As far as he knew, this kind of apprenticeship ceremony was still popular in the North Sea. The East Sea didn't have such a custom. After the apprenticeship ceremony, Lu Ping left the listening sound building early. The middle-aged man, who was the last to arrive, also left with Daoist Plum after the ceremony. After a while, Daoist Plum returned to the hall. After a while, the middle-aged man walked down the stairs as if he was admiring the architectural style of the listening sound building. Afterward, the middle-aged man bid farewell to Immortal Plum. After leaving the listening sound building, he casually strolled around Qianyuan City until he reached a remote corner. The middle-aged man looked behind him and said, "Kid, there's no one here. Come out." Not far behind the middle-aged man, Lu Ping walked out from a corner where junk was piled up. The middle-aged man looked at Lu Ping with interest and said, "A blood condensation miner repairs cultivator dares to follow a core forging enlightened master? You're quite courageous. Although Qianyuan City forbids cultivators from fighting, if this enlightened master kills you with one palm, the cultivators in Qianyuan City won't be able to do anything to me." Lu Ping didn't take the middle-aged man's threat seriously. He smiled and said, "3 truths and 4 spirits." The middle-aged man's expression suddenly changed. Lu Ping's vision blurred and in the blink of an eye, the middle-aged man was already in front of him. His divine sense pressed down on Lu Ping, immobilizing him. The middle-aged man stared at Lu Ping and said with killing intent, "Brat, what did you just say?" Although Lu Ping was imprisoned by the middle-aged man's divine sense and magic power, the middle-aged man's divine sense pressure had no effect on Lu Ping. Lu Ping still smiled and said, "Is senior surnamed Liang?" The middle-aged man suddenly released Lu Ping and said with a smile, "Kid, you're from the North Sea." Lu Ping didn't think the middle-aged man would lose his hostility just because he let go of the shackles. With his late core forging cultivation base, Lu Ping wouldn't be able to escape. The shackles just now were just a test. Lu Ping respectfully bowed and said, "Senior, please prove your identity." If the two wanted to clarify their relationship, the middle-aged man was in a strong position. Not only could he show his sincerity by taking a step back, but he also wasn't afraid of Lu Ping playing tricks in front of him. The middle-aged man casually threw a nameplate to Lu Ping. Lu Ping examined the nameplate, then cast a few secret techniques on it. Finally, his face lit up and he returned the nameplate to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man put away the nameplate and said with a smile, "Kid, is it time for you to introduce yourself?" Lu Ping bowed and said, "Disciple of Chonghua sect, Lu Ziping, greets martial uncle Liang Xianfeng." Liang Xianfeng looked at Lu Ping with a dumbfounded expression. He said with some disbelief, You're actually the male disciple of senior sister Xianling? How can you attend her apprenticeship ceremony?" Lu Ping was a little confused, so he said, "Martial nephew was invited by the Li family of Sanjia Island to attend the apprenticeship ceremony of Miss Li." Then he asked with some uncertainty, "But what's wrong with a disciple attending Daoist Plum's apprenticeship ceremony?" At this time, Liang Xianfeng had already regained his previous calm expression. He said, "I see. I heard that senior sister Xianling accepted a male disciple, and he's also a genius alchemist. After you disappeared, there was a big storm in the sect. Fortunately, your spiritual sense lamp was always burning, so there was no big trouble." Lu Ping had been away from the North Sea for a few years. He was eager to know about the situation in the North Sea, especially Jinling's situation after the beast tide. However, Liang Xianfeng was not often in the sect, but he had his own sources of information. He told Lu Ping about the situation in the North Sea these years. Lu Ping also roughly told him about his travel in the East Sea these years. Liang Xianfeng patted Lu Ping's shoulder and praised, "Good boy, so you're the famous pill master Lu Jiu in Qianyuan City Pill Gathering. You're indeed worthy of being the disciple that senior sister Xianling values." Lu Ping smiled embarrassedly. He said, "Martial uncle, I've been in the East Sea for a long time. How can I return to the North Sea?" Liang Xianfeng was stunned. He said, "That's a little difficult. The teleportation array in the East Sea of Jinling is built in the Fallen Secret Land. Usually, it's easy for me to bring you back to the sect's base in the Secret Land. However, I have something very important to do now, so I can't return to the Secret Land for a while." With your current cultivation, you can't pass through the secret land to the inner area of the secret land. Lu Ping was surprised. He asked, our sect has a base in the fallen secret land? Liang Xianfeng thought for a while when he heard Lu Ping's question. He said, originally, you shouldn't know about this, but since you're about to advance to the core forging stage, it won't be a secret anymore. The center of the fallen secret land is the only giant spirit mine in the Endless Sea. Surrounding this giant spirit mine and some other accompanying spirit materials, the major sects in the Endless Sea have formed a relatively balanced distribution system. Naturally, I, Zhenling, have a place in the middle of the secret land. Celestial phenomenon Laozu is guarding the island, and there's a teleportation array on the island that leads to the North Sea. However, this island is in the inner area of the fallen secret land, and it's at the northern end. It's too dangerous to pass through without a cultivation of the middle or late core forging stage. Lu Ping couldn't help feeling a little disappointed, but he still asked, Martial Uncle, is there anything I can do for you on this trip to the North Sea? Liang Xianfeng looked at Lu Ping, a little disappointed. He said, this matter concerns whether I can advance to the transcendence stage in the future. You're too weak now. If you can advance to the Golden Core stage in 3 years, you can be of help. If you can advance to the Golden Core stage by then, you can go to the Silver Sword Island under the jurisdiction of Skyren to look for me. Chapter 287. After bidding farewell to Liang Xianfeng, Lu Ping returned to his rented abode dejectedly. Qi Lianying stayed at the listening villa. She heard that Perfected Plum would give a lecture to her disciples after the ceremony. Qi Lianying naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity. She also had to prepare to break through to the core forging stage. Lu Ping was curious about the relationship between Qi Lianying and Perfected Plum. They weren't master and disciple, but Qi Lianying was qualified to listen to Perfected Plum's lecture. He thought about how Qi Lianying had said before leaving, Xiao Lu, when I've condensed my golden core, I'll take care of anything that I can't settle. Lu Ping couldn't help but laugh. This woman might look rash, but she was extremely shrewd. Lu Ping also couldn't figure out why Qi Lianying was following him. She didn't look like a spy planted by the boudoir at all. Before Perfected Liang Xianfeng left, he hesitated for a long time before solemnly telling Lu Ping not to get close to Perfected Plum. This made Lu Ping very surprised and felt that it was unusual. Lu Ping suspected that Perfected Plum was also a perfected master of the sect. He wanted to ask about her background, but Perfected Liang Xianfeng waved his hand and said, it's no good for you to know these things. I shouldn't tell you either. Anyway, don't get too close to her, and don't mention that you're Zhenling's disciple to her. After telling Lu Ping, Perfected Liang Xianfeng murmured to himself, damn, they're all demons. I wanted to ask her for help, but I didn't expect her to go into seclusion to break through to the Dharma stage after accepting her as a disciple. I can only rely on myself now. Lu Ping wanted to ask more, but Perfected Liang Xianfeng didn't give him a chance. He turned around and disappeared. Lu Ping shook his head helplessly. Before leaving North Sea, Grandmaster Jiang Xianlin had just broken through to the Dharma stage, and Master Lu Xianling was also making the final preparations. He just learned from Uncle Master Liang Xianfeng that Xianling Sect's Feng Shudao had also broken through to the Dharma stage. He seemed to have arranged a battle with Grandmaster Jiang Xianlin, but he returned in defeat, shocking the entire North Sea again. Now Yan Wujiu was about to break through to the Dharma stage and had no time to attend to the internal strife within the clan, so he entrusted Wan Yu to Lu Ping. Immortal Mei was also going into seclusion. Uncle Master Liang Xianfeng was also going into seclusion. Uncle Master Liang was also running around for the opportunity to break through to the Dharma stage. All he knew was that all these high-level cultivators were all to break. If something was going to happen that could make these high-grade cultivators so cautious, then it had to be an earth-shattering event that concerned the entire cultivation world. Thinking of North Sea, Lu Ping couldn't help but think of Hu Lily. She had indeed lived up to his expectations. Now, She had been accepted as a disciple by her master, perfected Lu Xuanling's junior sister, perfected Xianchen. Perfected Xianchen had even caused trouble in the Yuan and Leng families, but the core forging sages of the two families mysteriously didn't appear to stop him. Rumor had it that perfected Lu Xianling was the only one who could not get out of the cave. However, Lu Ping didn't know the details of the matter. As for Leng Qian and Yuan Zhan, perfected Liang Xianfeng obviously wouldn't pay attention to it. However, from Lu Ping's point of view, there was no evidence that the Yuan family colluded with foreign enemies to frame Lu Ping. At most, Hu Lili could only remind perfected Lu Xianling to be on guard. Otherwise, the one who caused trouble in the Yuan and Leng families wouldn't be perfected Xianchen, but perfected Lu Xianling, who was hiding behind the scenes. Lu Ping, who was thinking along the way, obviously let his guard down. Moreover, Lu Ping didn't expect any accidents to happen in Qianyuan City. Therefore, Lu Ping didn't notice that there were no pedestrians on the remote street that he was walking on. Only the sound of Lu Ping's footsteps could be heard on the empty street. Lu Ping was shocked. When he stopped and looked around, he saw a layer of rippling light covering the entire street. Lu Ping's divine sense was like mercury, spreading in all directions. However, it was tightly bound by this layer of light in the formation. Lu Ping reached out and slashed to the left. The golden scale sword suddenly appeared in his hand and he slashed downwards. A crisp, dang, sound was heard. A masked cultivator in linen clothes maintained the posture of using the magic weapon in his hand to block the golden scale sword. However, he was cut out by Lu Ping. Immediately after, the masked cultivator's eyes showed shock and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The veil covering his face turned purplish red because of the blood. The golden scale sword immediately swung behind him. Dozens of sword shadows densely filled the street behind him. 3 cultivators retreated from their invisible state in a sorry state to block Lu Ping's attack. At that moment, 3 more cultivators rushed over. Just as they raised the magic weapons in their hands, 3 whip shadows, 1 azure, 1 blue, and 1 white, suddenly flashed in the air and fiercely struck the 3 magic weapons. The 3 magic weapons immediately lost control and flew far away. The 3 cultivators attempted to regain control of the 3 magic artifacts only to see the 3 whips pouncing towards them. The 3 cultivators hastily abandoned the 3 magic artifacts that were knocked away and joined forces to form a simple array to temporarily block the 3 whips. 3 heavy blows landed on the same spot of the shield in a row, causing the high-grade shield in front of the 3 of them to shake, deform, and shatter. The person who stood in front of the shield was severely injured, and before he could even spit out a mouthful of blood, a white whip shadow had already lashed on his body. Only then did the other 2 people realize that the white whip shadow was actually a 3 feet long white snake. In the end, the injured cultivator didn't spit out a mouthful of blood. Instead, 2 bright red ice cubes protruded from his mouth. Then, he fell to the ground and broke into 2 pieces. The other 2 cultivators still hadn't recovered from their shock. The remaining blue and azure snakes had already charged towards them in a zigzagging trajectory. At that moment, 2 of the 3 cultivators behind Lu Ping who planned to mount a sneak attack had already been beheaded by Lu Ping. There was only 1 cultivator left who was stubbornly resisting. However, he had already lost sight of the others. He simply didn't notice that a large brick had already risen high behind him and then fiercely smashed down. Dong! Even Lu Ping felt pain for this person. Immediately after, the cultivator's eyes rolled up, revealing a large area of white eyeballs. Then, he fell forward stiffly. At that moment, Lu Ping once again felt a hair-raising murderous intent coming straight at Lu Ping's back. There was actually a core forging enlightened master lying in ambush. Lu Ping couldn't be bothered with anything else. He tightened his golden scale sword and condensed a sword of true essence. Then, he slashed at the magic tool that was rushing towards him from behind. At the same time, his left hand subconsciously moved in coordination with the sword art in his hand. Just like before, this cultivator was dressed in linen garments and his face was covered with a vast and mighty true essence. It was clear that he was at the core forging stage. It's actually a magic treasure. I want it. The assassin in linen garments said happily. The ear-piercing sound of metal colliding rang out in succession. Bursts of sword chi and sword light danced in all directions. Lu Ping retreated several steps in succession. His complexion was somewhat pale due to the consumption of magic power and the tyrannical strength of his opponent. Although this second-layer core forging cultivator's cultivation was similar to Dao Master Jin Li's, his strength was far above that of the heavily injured Dao Master Jin Li. You were actually able to take one of my attacks and not die. The masked Taoist in linen garments had a malevolent expression on his face. His voice was distorted as he said, "How is this possible? I can't let you live." He reached out and recalled the flying spear that had collided with the golden scale sword. Unexpectedly, it was also a magic treasure. He was about to attack again. At that moment, two screams suddenly rang out. It turned out that the remaining two people had also been killed by Lu Qing and Lu Hai. Of his two subordinates, one had his flesh and bones separated, the other had half of his body corroded, and the first cultivator killed by Lu Ling had already been shattered into pieces of ice. The corner of the masked Taoist's eyes twitched and he said, "Your Excellency is truly ruthless. I will make sure you die without a burial." Spiritual light flourished around the flying spear and a huge spear shadow soared into the sky. The sharp spear tip pointed towards Lu Ping from afar. The spear tip swayed slightly as if it had sealed off all of Lu Ping's escape routes. Lu Ping wasn't alarmed, but rather delighted. He faced the masked Taoist with a strange smile. The masked Taoist was startled and inwardly cursed, "Not good." Then he heard the sound of silk tearing. A faintly discernible flying sword had already torn apart the light barrier that had previously imprisoned the area while he was fighting Lu Ping with all his strength. The masked Taoist, who was about to attack with all his strength, caused the already turbulent spiritual energy to become even more turbulent. Now that the formation was suddenly destroyed, almost a third of Heaven Origin City knew that someone was fighting in the city, and that it was a core forging expert. Which son of a bitch is fighting in the city? An angry howl came from afar. It was clear that the unscrupulous fighting in Heaven Origin City had angered the enlightened masters of the Northern Alliance. Moreover, the Northern Alliance enlightened master who had rushed over was clearly not a good-tempered person. Count yourself lucky. Through the short exchange just now, the masked Taoist knew that Lu Ping couldn't be taken down in a short time. He turned around and hid in the alley, disappearing in an instant. Lu Ping kept the samling in the spirit beast pouch. De Bao, who had knocked out the cultivator with the brick, had already picked up the 7 storage pouches. Lu Ping wanted to take the cultivator alive, but Qian Zhongsu's magic tool was left in the cave. He had no choice but to kill the cultivator with his sword. Then, he retracted his aura and disappeared into the alley. In the sky, a red light landed on the scene of the battle. Looking at the 7 corpses on the ground, the bearded enlightened master's face turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Then, a few more lights landed beside the bearded enlightened master, searching for the murderer with him. At this time, Lu Ping had already blended into the crowd of the more prosperous streets. A large amount of divine sense covered the streets, searching for suspicious cultivators. However, Lu Ping's blood condensation cultivation obviously didn't attract the attention of the investigators. At this time, Lu Ping had already returned to his cave dwelling, leaving aside the huge shock caused by the battle in Qianyuan City. However, just as the Northern Alliance enlightened masters of Heaven Origin City cleaned up the scene of the battle and left, at the mouth of an alley on the side of the street, 2 slender cultivators, who looked like they had no bones, forcibly squeezed out from a tightly locked window. Chapter 288. Can you confirm these auras? The one who spoke was the white-robed cultivator on the left. Don't worry, I've already memorized the aura of those cultivators in linen clothes. Unfortunately, the other group of people left too quickly, and the aura of the Emerald Sea Spirit Serpent also strangely disappeared. It seems that the other group of people either has a secret technique to hide their tracks, or they have a similar magical pill. Old Black, are you sure that the aura of the green sea snake appeared here? The black-robed cultivator, Old Black, glanced at the white-robed cultivator and said, "You don't trust Old Black's sense of smell? Otherwise, why would I call you over? It's a pity that we're too late." The white-robed cultivator was puzzled. That can't be right. I've never heard of anyone from the Chu clan coming to the human race, much less to the Northern Alliance. The black-robed cultivator chuckled and said, "Who knows? Judging from the lingering aura, the green sea snake's cultivation isn't that high. Perhaps it's another child who sneaked out. It's not like something like this hasn't happened to the Chu clan before. 2 of their children were eaten by the Yen clan's silk pants, and the 2 clans became enemies because of that. It's indeed a pity. If we can find these green sea snakes, we might be able to steal their bloodline. Who knows, our cultivation might rise to the next level." The white-robed cultivator had a greedy look on his face. "Don't even think about it. Putting aside the fact that these green sea snakes have low cultivation, we might not be able to use their bloodline. Even if we're lucky enough to steal their bloodline, do you think you can hide it from the Chu clan? In the future, the Snake clan will no longer be a hiding place for us 2 brothers." Hearing the black-robed cultivator's warning, the white-robed cultivator's expression changed. With an embarrassed smile, he said, "It's just a joke. How could I possibly dare to make a move on the green sea snakes? What should we do now? We found traces of the green sea snakes in Qianyuan City. Should we report it to the Chu clan? Naturally, we will. However, we need to first figure out the identities of these feline-clothed cultivators. Since they dared to attack the green sea snake, the Chu family might fly into a rage." When Lu Ping returned to his cave residence, he naturally didn't know that the news of the green sea snake appearing in Qianyuan City had already spread to the demon race. At this time, a guest had been waiting in his cave residence for a long time. "Welcome, sect leader Qiao. I apologize for not going out to welcome you." Seeing that Lu Ping was being so polite, Dark Mountain Gang leader Qiao Jingyan quickly waved his hand and said with a smile, "Brother Lu is too kind to the old man. Who doesn't know Brother Lu's name in Heaven Essence City now? You and I can talk to each other as equals. The old man doesn't deserve the title of senior." Lu Ping did not fuss too much about these empty courtesies. Instead, he asked, "Is there something wrong with young Master Qiao's injury? I've been busy these days, so I've delayed young Master Qiao's alchemy." Seeing that Lu Ping took the initiative to talk about alchemy, Qiao Jingyan was relieved and said, "My injury is still the same. I've been through it for so many years. A few more days won't make much of a difference." Lu Ping took the storage bag from Qiao Jingyan. There were already 3 sets of spiritual herbs needed to refine the spiritual water meridian nourishing pill. At the same time, there was a jade bowl filled with clear spiritual water. "This is the spiritual clarity water?" Lu Ping asked in surprise. Qiao Jingyan smiled and said, "Brother Lu has a good eye. Everyone says that alchemists are the most knowledgeable people in the cultivation world. What I've seen today is indeed true. Brother Lu, if you want to concoct this miraculous pill, according to the pill recipe, a high-grade spirit water is a must. This spirit brightsite water is a miraculous item that the Dark Mountain Gang obtained by accident. Even though it can't compare to the spirit water of heaven and earth, it should be enough to create a spirit pill. If Brother Lu is able to concoct this spirit pill, this spirit water will be your reward." Lu Ping looked at the bowl of spiritual water and then at Qiao Jingyan. He smiled and said, "All right, this spiritual water is indeed very useful to me. I won't be unreasonable anymore. I will be staying in Heaven Essence City for a while. If the Dark Mountain Gang needs anything, just let me know." Qiao Jingyan was overjoyed to get Lu Ping's promise, but Lu Ping didn't care. Qiao Jingyan was only here to refine the pill. Now that Yu Jiangrui was here, it would be a waste not to earn this favor. After sending Qiao Jingyan away, Lu Ping's face darkened. He began to wonder who had such a big grudge against him that they would risk offending the Northern Alliance and ambush him in Heaven Essence City. They even sent a core forging enlightened master to kill him. However, it seemed that the core forging enlightened master didn't expect Lu Ping to be so difficult to deal with. Otherwise, he wouldn't have acted so hastily after Lu Ping killed his subordinates, giving Lu Ping a chance to buy time. If the core forging enlightened master had used his full strength from the beginning, Lu Ping's life would be in danger. The only worry was that the core forging enlightened master had already seen Samling. He didn't know if the core forging enlightened master could recognize Samling's identity as the green sea snake. However, from the experience of a core forging enlightened master, Lu Ping had better be prepared for his identity as the spirit snake to be exposed. Fortunately, this was Heaven Essence City. Even if the demon clan came knocking, they wouldn't dare to make a big fuss. Although the clear spirit water was also a kind of heaven and earth mysterious treasure, it was a pity that it couldn't be integrated into Lu Ping's aura shield. Although Lu Ping's aura shield could be integrated with another kind of water attribute heaven and earth mysterious treasure, the real use of the clear spirit water was not to be used on the aura shield. 3 pure eyes was a kind of small divine ability that Lu Ping heard from Hu Lili. This small divine ability could see through illusions, and it was the most important for cultivators who practiced formations. The refinement of this small divine ability required at least 3 kinds of water attribute heaven and earth mysterious treasures that had the effect of clearing the eyes and awakening the mind. The clear spirit water was one of the most suitable heaven and earth mysterious treasures. This small bowl of clear spirit water seemed to be just enough for the 2 of them to use to cleanse their eyes. How could Lu Ping be willing to use it for alchemy? The myriad poison liquid was also a heaven and earth mysterious treasure, but it could not be used for alchemy unless it was used to harm people like the dark prison poisonous fire. As for the myriad poison liquid, Lu Ping still didn't know what kind of spirit water it was. However, if he soaked in the myriad poison liquid for a long time, Lu Ping naturally wouldn't take the risk. As a result, only the small pond of Kuei water essence that Lu Ping had used up more than half of was left in the 1000-bell millet. Originally, Lu Ping had thrown 3 9th-grade white jade lotus seeds into this small pond. Now, they probably hadn't even germinated. Lu Ping didn't have any scruples. The remaining 1/3 of the Kuei water essence was scooped up by Lu Ping. Spirit Water Meridian Nourishing Pill. This was a peculiar way of using spirit water for alchemy. When Lu Ping saw this pill recipe, his heart surged with great joy. This was definitely the birth of a new school of alchemy. Alchemy required the use of fire. This was common knowledge in the cultivation world. Therefore, the vast majority of alchemists in the cultivation world practiced fire attribute or wood attribute cultivation methods. This was a great help for alchemists to control fire and familiarize themselves with medicinal properties. Like Lu Ping, who achieved his current level of alchemy with a water attribute cultivation method, it could be said to be an anomaly in the cultivation world. The effort, losses, and fortuitous encounters required for this were not known to outsiders. In the eyes of some shallow alchemists, this water spirit meridian nourishing pellets concoction with spirit water was a ridiculous idea. While some knowledgeable alchemists could see the value of the technique, they couldn't control the spirit water to concoct the pellets. Unless they could be like Lu Ping, who used a water elemental cultivation technique to control the spirit water with the indigo spiritual fire, spending a lot of time to refine the spirit water with a fire elemental cultivation technique. Then, the cauldron would explode again and again to improve his water elemental alchemy technique. Of course, it couldn't be ruled out that some alchemists had other concerns and deliberately reprimanded this pill recipe for being absurd. After all, the birth of a new school of alchemy would inevitably have a new impact on alchemists. What's more, this kind of alchemy school gave cultivators who had absolutely no chance to become alchemists a chance to become alchemists. This was a phenomenon that some alchemists absolutely didn't want to see, let alone face. This was the narrow-mindedness and stubbornness of alchemists. However, to Lu Ping, this new method of alchemy seemed to have been specially prepared for him. It was simply a match made in heaven. Compared to pills refined with spirit fire, spirit water meridian nourishing pill did not have an immediate effect, but it had the possibility of a long period of nourishment and recovery. It was the most suitable for cultivators who had been injured for a long period of time and had a weak body. This was because these cultivators often couldn't bear the impact of the violent medicinal power because their bodies had been injured for a long period of time. The kuei water essence was easily manipulated by Lu Ping, extracting the medicinal efficacies from the spirit herbs in the cauldron over and over again. Then, Lu Ping used the purification technique to purify and condense the medicinal efficacies from the kuei water essence. Finally, he melted a portion of the kuei water essence into the medicinal efficacies. Several pellets that were as soft as water droplets and could change shape at will without breaking were refined. Qiao Zhengyan, who had been waiting for a long time, was overjoyed. He hurriedly brought the pills back. A few months later, the young master of the Dark Mountain Gang, who had been paralyzed for several years due to cultivation deviation, miraculously recovered and successfully advanced to the core forging realm. Immediately after that, internal strife broke out in the Dark Mountain Gang. The Dark Mountain Gang's leader, Qiao Zhengyan, teamed up with another hall leader who was in the core forging realm to accuse the rebellious hall leader of plotting to usurp the position of the gang leader and murder the young master of the Dark Mountain Gang. The rebellious hall leader was quickly killed. After the rebellion was quelled, the position of hall leader was taken over by Qiao Zhengyan's son, Qiao Jiwei. At this time, Lu Ping was releasing bees in the Dark Mountain Gang's spiritual herb garden. The purple crystal bees had all advanced to the mid-blood refining realm, and the queen bee had even reached the late blood refining realm. After forming the Dao Soldier formation, more than 200 purple crystal bees were enough to fight against a mid-blood condensation realm cultivator. However, if he wanted to let this swarm of purple crystal bees multiply, he would have to wait for the queen bee to reach the blood condensation realm. Yu Jiangrui walked over from afar and looked at the 200 purple crystal bees flying around in the spiritual herb garden. A trace of envy flashed across his face. Lu Ping turned around and asked, "Are you done refining?" "It's just some healing pills that don't matter." The Dark Mountain Gang's rebellion was quelled very quickly. Other than the death of a hall leader in the core forging realm, they didn't suffer too much damage. Other than healing pills, you also promised to refine a large number of cultivation pills for them. Is a small Dark Mountain Gang worth investing so much in? Who knows what will happen in the future? They're the ones providing the spiritual herbs anyway, so we won't lose anything. Lu Ping smiled indifferently. So you're not the one refining the pills. Yu Jiangrui was very dissatisfied with Lu Ping's behavior of ordering him around like a coolie. "I'm a servant," Lu Ping smirked. "Of course I have to have the awareness of being a servant." Chapter 289. In the Earth-grade cave dwelling, Lu Ping handed Wu Yan another 360,000 spirit stones and asked him to renew the lease for another year. Honging brought the large amount of spirit herbs he had purchased in Qianyuan City and escorted Yu Jiangrui back to the perished mystic realm. Qi Lianying, who had already advanced to the core forging realm, also accompanied him. Once a cultivator reached the peak of the blood condensation realm, they could attempt to break through to the core forging realm. However, most of the cultivators who tried would fail. Therefore, most cultivators would slow down during this stage so that they could build a good foundation. However, Lu Ping was obviously more focused on perfection. He had slowed down his pace of breaking through to the core forging realm. With Yu Jiangrui's free labor, Lu Ping no longer had to concoct cultivation pills for the late blood condensation realm. Especially after he obtained the 3 Jade Spirit Pill from the Elixir Association, Lu Ping's cultivation had been slowly but steadily improving. Lu Ping did not ask Yu Jiangrui to concoct the Essence Expanding Pill, Meridian Strengthening Pill, and Pure Blood Pill. Even without Chu Ting's high-grade pill furnace, Lu Ping's pill concoction skills had undoubtedly improved. With the help of the Azure Spiritual Fire and the newly acquired Spirit Explosion technique, Lu Ping's success rate was still around 50% to 60%. This was because Lu Ping was really reluctant to use the Amethyst Royal Jelly. Otherwise, Lu Ping's success rate might very well be the same as Zhou Chuang of the Northern Alliance, reaching 70%. Unfortunately, these pills were extremely precious for consolidating a blood condensation realm cultivator's foundation. A cultivator could only consume 3 pills at most before they were ineffective. After Lu Ping swallowed the Meridian Toughening Pill and the Essence Expanding Pill, they played a great role. The toughness of Lu Ping's blood and the density of his magic power had a lot of room for improvement. This also allowed Lu Ping to extend his cultivation time by half a year. After cultivating the magic power in his body to saturation, Lu Ping discovered that the density of the magic power in his body had increased by 1/3. This time, even if Lu Ping were to use the Great Gentian Formation, he wouldn't end up like he did with Daoist Jin Li. After just a few rounds, he had been so exhausted that he had vomited blood and been seriously injured due to the lack of transcendence energy. It must be known that Lu Ping's Great Gentian Formation had yet to be perfected. Once it was perfected, the amount of transcendence energy required to use this set of magic tools would be even greater. The Pure Blood Pill once again proved the strangeness of Lu Ping's bloodline. The most important function of the Pure Blood Pill was to purify one's transcendence energy. If the Essence Expanding Pill could be said to be able to thicken a cultivator's transcendence energy, then the Pure Blood Pill could be said to be pure. However, after Lu Ping swallowed the Pure Blood Pill, the pure medicinal energy within Lu Ping's blood vessels did not have the slightest effect. It was as if Lu Ping's bloodline was so pure that he didn't need the Pure Blood Pill anymore. The Pure Blood Pill's medicinal energy circulated within Lu Ping's blood vessels. Apart from the spiritual energy that was useful for cultivation, which was refined into transcendence energy, the rest of the medicinal energy was wasted. Lu Ping was puzzled and couldn't be bothered to think about it. He flipped his hand and took out a jade bottle from his storage ring. There were only 3 purple pills inside. 7-step marked pill. This was the pill that Lu Ping had refined using the 2 sets of spiritual herbs provided by the Li clan when he was on the 3-clan island. At that time, because of Chu Ting's arrival, Li Maolin and his daughter, who didn't trust Lu Ping's alchemy skills, only gave Lu Ping 2 sets of spiritual herbs. They said that as long as Lu Ping could successfully refine a 7-step marked pill, it would be enough. Lu Ping just happened to make a fortune. 2 sets of 7-step marked pills, a total of 4 pills were refined. Other than one for the Li clan, the other 3 were given to Lu Ping for free. Lu Ping had taken the enchanting thought pill before. This kind of pill could allow Lu Ping to reach the core forging stage first, allowing him to experience the realms of a core forging stage cultivator. This experience was still vivid in his mind, and it stimulated Lu Ping's desire to advance to the core forging stage. When Lu Ping finished refining the 3 7-step marked pills, a huge wave of energy surged through Lu Ping's blood vessels like an awakened dragon. The 9 condensed blood pills in the core space formed a concentric circle and began to slowly revolve. The 9 condensed blood beads revolved faster and faster, as if they had a tacit understanding. Layer after layer of bloodline essence was stripped from the 9 condensed blood beads. Then, the 9 layers of bloodline essence condensed together, and a golden light enveloped the entire core space. After the light faded, a drop of golden true essence liquid flowed within the core space. The 9 condensed blood beads bloodline essence was stripped faster and faster, and more golden true essence liquid condensed. However, Lu Ping's bloodline seemed to be lacking in strength, as if it was lacking something extremely important. A deep sense of hunger and thirst once again filled Lu Ping's blood vessels. The opportunity had arrived. A blood condensation cultivator needed to replenish his bloodline one last time before condensing his golden core. This was the perfect time. Only after replenishing his bloodline could Lu Ping finally condense his golden core. Lu Ping took out a jade bottle. Inside the bottle were 10 gold condensed blood pills refined from Daoist Master Jin Li's golden core. They could be used to replenish Lu Ping's own bloodline. Although these gold condensed blood pills were top-notch half-step core forging pills, with Lu Ping's current alchemy skills, it was impossible for him to completely refine the golden core into 10 gold condensed blood pills. These 10 gold condensed blood pills were actually the work of Yan Wujiu. That day, Yan Wujiu had stayed in Lu Ping's cave for several days. Besides entrusting Wan Yu to Lu Ping and teaching Lu Qin a set of secret cultivation techniques, Yan Wujiu had spent the rest of the time waiting for Lu Ping to ask for guidance. Not paying respect to an expert was the greatest sin. Lu Ping naturally would not let go of such a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It had to be known that the other party was an alchemy grandmaster. Otherwise, with Yan Wujiu's late core forging cultivation, how could he possibly stand on equal footing with Hongyi Laozu? Besides consulting Yan Wujiu on a large number of alchemy skills, Lu Ping also asked Yan Wujiu to help him refine the gold condensed blood pills. This allowed Lu Ping to witness the elegance of an alchemy grandmaster. A top-grade pill furnace, a high-tier earth-grade heaven spirit fire, 9-tune mystical yellow flame, a simple technique to control the fire, and a complicated hand seal for condensing the pill. The entire process was as smooth as water flowing into a canal, without the slightest trace of craftsmanship. Lu Ping believed that apart from the purification process, Lu Ping's improved purification technique was not inferior to Yan Wujiu's purification technique. In other aspects, the gap was simply incalculable. The pill furnace opened, and 10 gold condensed blood pills gushed out. Lu Ping and Yu Jiangrui, who were observing from the side, were dumbstruck, indescribably shocked. This was simply too easy. This was the alchemy skills of a grandmaster. While the two were still immersed in Yan Wujiu's godly alchemy skills, unable to extricate themselves, Yan Wujiu faintly smiled, and quietly left Lu Ping's cave. When Lu Ping and Yu Jiangrui both let out a long sigh of relief, they both had gained something. Only then did they realize that Yan Wujiu had already left. There was only a jade crystal bottle left in the alchemy room, and within it were the 10 gold condensed blood pills. The reason why Lu Ping had asked Yan Wujiu to refine the pills, apart from the fact that his own alchemy skills were unable to refine the entire gold core into 10 pills, there was another important reason: Lu Ping hoped to obtain a complete bloodline. A complete gold core was undoubtedly a relatively complete bloodline. If Lu Ping used his full strength, even if he couldn't reach the level of 10 gold condensed blood pills, he would still be able to refine 6 or 7 of them. However, if he did so, he would undoubtedly lose a portion of his gold core bloodline. Unknowingly, Lu Ping believed that in terms of bloodline replenishment, the more complete the bloodline, the more perfect the foundation bloodline would be. At the very least, in the 2 previous bloodline replenishment processes, Lu Ping's cultivation had advanced only after he had refined the last condensed blood bead. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. After Lu Ping had refined the 7-step marked pill, the 9 condensed blood beads in his core space had completely transformed into true essence pill liquid. His heartbeat had become increasingly powerful, and his blood flowed through his veins, issuing sounds akin to the rising and falling tides. At this moment, it was as if the strength that he had accumulated for a long time had been completely exhausted. Lu Ping made a prompt decision, and swallowed a gold condensed blood pill into his abdomen, and began to refine it. The huge amount of true essence that had been dormant in the pill was still mixed with the bloodline replenishment, and was forcibly swallowed by Lu Ping's foundation bloodline. As Lu Ping swallowed one gold condensed blood pill after another, Lu Ping's foundation bloodline became more and more complete. A pressure that Lu Ping hadn't noticed spread out from the cultivation room, and it continued to grow stronger. After he finished refining the 10 gold condensed blood pills, Lu Ping's bloodline contained an immeasurable amount of true essence. The 9 condensed blood beads in his core space had already transformed into 1,296 drops of true essence liquid. The 12 gentian beads surrounded the drops of true essence liquid in the center of his core space. At the same time, the true essence liquid in his bloodline was gradually being refined by Lu Ping, and it continuously gathered in his core space before being assimilated by the true essence liquid. The 1,296 drops of true essence liquid slowly expanded, and the entire core space was covered in layers of dazzling golden light. At this moment, Lu Ping felt a loud rumble within his body. It was as if a spirit had been born within his bloodline, and a roar that seemed to come from ancient times accompanied the completion of his bloodline. A completely new and unprecedented feeling enveloped Lu Ping's entire body. When the spirit of his bloodline awakened, Lu Ping's core space suddenly began to expand. 1,926 drops of true essence liquid merged in pairs, turning into 648 drops, then into 324 drops. As the number of true essence liquid fused decreased, each drop of true essence liquid became larger and larger. When the true essence liquid once again transformed into the 9 huge true essence beads, the 12 life gentian beads that were originally rotating slowly suddenly sped up. A huge amount of spiritual power began to gather within Lu Ping's body, and at the same time, the 9 huge true essence beads also began to gather towards the center of his core space. Wu Yan was already in the cultivation room outside the cave. The increasingly heavy pressure that Lu Ping was emitting was suppressing him to the point that he did not dare to move. This pressure was not only the pressure from Lu Ping's divine sense, but it was also accompanied by an indescribable pressure that seemed to come from his bloodline. However, at this moment, Wu Yan could no longer care about his body being suppressed to the point that he could not move. His mouth was wide open, and his eyes were sluggish as he stared at the slowly forming vortex of spiritual energy above the cave. Chapter 290. At this time, Lu Ping, who was in seclusion, had no idea that he had caused such a huge commotion during his breakthrough to the core forging realm. He had become a bottomless abyss that devoured the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Just as the 9 huge true essence droplets began to gather in his core space, Lu Ping's divine sense suddenly entered his core space and began to seep into the 9 true essence droplets. The North Sea wave listening technique continuously absorbed the spiritual energy into his body and refined it into true essence. As the spiritual energy flowed through his veins, it finally gathered in the 9 true essence droplets. At the same time, Lu Ping's divine sense also gathered. Because of the divine sense's penetration, Lu Ping's initial condensed true essence contained spirituality. Because of the fusion of the divine sense and true essence, the spirituality of the bloodline was awakened. Lu Ping's magic power was too dense during the blood condensation realm. In the process of transforming it into true essence, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth reached a terrifying level. In addition to the North Sea wave listening scripture, absorbing spiritual energy, Lu Ping also set up a spirit gathering array formation that covered the entire cave dwelling. A total of 180 mid-grade spirit stones were embedded in the array formation. While the array formation gathered the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, it also continuously transmitted the spiritual energy into Lu Ping's body. A ball of light hung from Lu Ping's waist. Because of the gathering of spiritual energy, it also appeared to be purple. At this time, the 12 gentian beads in Lu Ping's core space were still rotating rapidly. In Lu Ping's core space, the 9 true essence beads were slowly approaching each other, forming a huge spiritual energy whirlpool. Compared to the spiritual energy whirlpool in Lu Ping's body, there was also a huge spiritual energy whirlpool formed in the sky above Lu Ping's cave. The spiritual energy from all directions gathered into this whirlpool, making it visible to everyone within a 10-mile radius of the cave. Heaven and Earth Anomaly, Heaven and Earth Anomaly. The movement caused by Lu Ping's breakthrough was too big. It was impossible for it not to attract attention. Which cultivator broke through to the core forging realm? Broke through to the core forging realm? How could this be a breakthrough to the core forging realm? I'm afraid a cultivator might even advance to the mid or late core forging stage. Impossible. When a cultivator breaks through to the mid or late core forging stage, they might be able to absorb so much worldly spiritual energy. However, these enlightened masters are already able to freely control the primary energy within their bodies. It is impossible for such a huge phenomenon to occur. Perhaps a certain perfected being wants to show off. I think there's an 80% chance that this Taoist master fused with a heaven and earth spirit item in the process of breaking through. That's why he didn't have the time to care about controlling the true yuan and heaven and earth spiritual energy in his body. Right at this moment, a wave of divine sense pressure came sweeping over, covering a radius of 4 miles around Lu Ping's cave abode. My divine sense has spread out in all directions. Sure enough, it's a Taoist master who has broken through to the middle stage core forging realm. It seems like this Taoist master has successfully broken through. It's just that this divine will pressure is a little too heavy. Could it be that this enlightened being is trying to establish his might? I think it's because the rank of the heaven and earth spirit item is too high. But heaven and earth spirit items can also strengthen the pressure of divine sense. This is new information. The 9 primary energy beads collided with each other in the core space, causing the worldly spiritual energy that was gathering towards Lu Ping to become turbulent. Wu Yan, who was outside the cave abode, was blown to the ground by the wave of spiritual energy. A voice that only Lu Ping could hear exploded in Lu Ping's mind. For a moment, Lu Ping lost control of his divine will and it spread out in all directions. Everything within a radius of 4 miles appeared in Lu Ping's mind. Lu Ping could also hear the discussions of the cultivators. When Lu Ping's divine will returned to Lu Ping's control, the divine will above the cave abode had completely disappeared. However, the spiritual energy within a radius of 5 miles was still gathering towards Lu Ping's cave abode. At this time, the core space of Lu Ping's divine will had been dyed gold. In the center of the space, a huge but somewhat unstable golden pill was tightly surrounded by 12 gentian beads that were emitting 5-colored light. Lu Ping's mind was closely connected with the golden pill. A part of Lu Ping's divine will had also penetrated into the golden pill, forming an inexplicable relationship with the golden pill. It was as if the golden pill was his second life, or as if it was an egg that was pregnant with life. The moment it broke out of the cocoon, it was the moment of his second life's revival. Forging core, 3rd stage core forging stage, was the process of forging one's own divine will into the golden pill. Now, Lu Ping's divine will had formed a close relationship with the golden pill. Only when all of Lu Ping's divine will was forged into the golden pill, and during this period, the spiritual energy of the golden pill would be stimulated and strengthened by the spiritual energy of the golden pill 3 times in a row. Only then would the golden pill break out of the cocoon and become a Dharma idol. Lu Ping didn't have time to think about the future. Right now, he was extremely happy. After more than 20 years of painstaking cultivation, Lu Ping had finally formed a golden pill, becoming a high-level cultivator in the cultivation world. The spiritual energy was still continuously gathering. Lu Ping's golden pill had not yet been completely consolidated, and the real elemental energy in his blood vessels had been depleted due to the final condensation of the golden pill. The process of gathering spiritual energy within a 10-mile radius lasted for 3 whole months. During these 3 months, the area where Lu Ping was located seemed to have become a bottomless abyss of spiritual energy. No matter how much spiritual energy was gathered, it couldn't fill up this bottomless abyss. The cave that Lu Ping rented was one of the 24 Earth-ranked caves in the Northern Alliance. The density of the spiritual energy in the cave was equivalent to a medium-sized spiritual vein. Even so, under the combined effect of 3 spirit-gathering formations, Lu Ping was barely enough for Lu Ping's use. This wasn't because Lu Ping's need for spiritual energy was so great. It was because after Lu Ping broke through to the core forging stage, he had to consolidate his cultivation. This consolidation process was also a significant growth process for Lu Ping's cultivation. Not to mention, Lu Ping had taken 10 golden blood condensing pills. The essence of the blood vessels in the 10 pills was easily swallowed by Lu Ping's blood vessels. However, the spiritual energy in the 10 pills came from the golden pill of a second-stage core forging master. How could Lu Ping easily refine it? 3 months passed by quickly, and the gathering of spiritual energy finally stopped. Fortunately, there were no other caves built by the Northern Alliance nearby. Otherwise, under Lu Ping's influence, he wouldn't be able to cultivate at all. However, Lu Ping's breakthrough caused such a huge commotion that people within a 10-mile radius of Qianyuan City could see the phenomenon of heaven and earth when Lu Ping broke through. Half of the cultivators in Qianyuan City were talking about a core-forging enlightened master who was refining a spiritual object. Because the spiritual object's grade was too high, he lost control of his spiritual sense and spiritual energy, causing a phenomenon of heaven and earth. Naturally, Lu Ping's breakthrough couldn't be hidden from the Northern Alliance. At least, the Northern Alliance knew that the person who went into seclusion in that cave was not a core-forging enlightened master, but a peak blood condensation realm cultivator. Moreover, he was the famous alchemist Lu Jiu from the Northern Alliance's pill gathering. 3 months later, when Lu Ping's cave no longer gathered spiritual energy, the Northern Alliance's alchemist Master Immortal Qin and Hongye Laozu's personal disciple, Zhou Chuang, the alchemist genius who won first place in this year's pill gathering, paid a visit together. Although the trembling Wu Yan was terrified in front of Taoist Master Qin, who had reached the late stage of the core forging realm, she still explained everything clearly. Fellow Taoist Lu Jiu is still in seclusion. Immortal Qin frowned and asked. Yes. Wu Yan finally calmed down from her initial panic and let out a long sigh of relief before replying. Young Master said that after this breakthrough, due to the previous preparations, a large number of elixirs have yet to be refined in my body. If I cannot refine and eliminate them in time, it will greatly hinder my cultivation, so I need to continue my closed-door cultivation. Then, do you know when fellow Taoist Lu Jiu will come out of seclusion? For some reason, a trace of envy flashed across Immortal Qin's face. I don't know about this. Young Master didn't say clearly. He only said that after refining the accumulated medicinal energy in his body and completely stabilizing his cultivation, he will come out of seclusion. He didn't mention the specific date, Wu Yan answered. Wu Yan still answered in a methodical manner. Talking with a core-forging enlightened master was something that Wu Yan didn't even dare to imagine before. She felt an inexplicable sense of accomplishment in her heart. All right then. When Lu Daoyu comes out of seclusion, I will visit again. After leaving the cave, Zhou Chuang couldn't help but ask, Senior brother, did Lu Jiu really become an alchemy grandmaster in the blood condensation realm? Immortal Qin answered unhurriedly, otherwise, how do you think he passed the first inheritance test of an alchemy grandmaster? You also passed a grandmaster test. Don't you know the specific situation? Zhou Chuang was silent for a moment. Unfortunately, he didn't pass the other grandmaster test. So he still had some reservations in the alchemy gathering? Immortal Qin heard the unwillingness in Zhou Chuang's words. He said slowly, the cultivation world is full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. There are countless talented cultivators. Who dares to say that they are the best in the world? You must know that there is always a higher mountain and a higher mountain. Walking your own path and not being moved by external factors is the most valuable. Zhou Chuang silently followed behind Immortal Qin. After a while, he calmly said, Senior brother is right. Junior brother has learned something. Immortal Qin saw that Zhou Chuang's temperament and demeanor had changed greatly in a short period of time. He secretly sighed at this junior brother's intelligence, but he still said, Junior brother's cultivation is about to break through. Your foundation is also extremely solid. After this time, prepare to break through to the core forging realm. After Immortal Qin and Zhou Chuang left, the leader of the Dark Mountain Gang, Xiao Zhengyan, who knew about the cave, also came to visit with a young cultivator with a pale face. Then, Chu Ting and Li Xiuzhu from the listening small building also came to visit. They were also told by Wu Yan that Lu Ping was in seclusion and couldn't be disturbed, so they left. At this time, Lu Ping was going through a process of accumulating his strength in his cave dwelling, and this process even caught him off guard. Chapter 291. Lu Ping didn't expect the golden blood condensing pill to be so powerful. Lu Ping's original intention was to use the golden core to supplement his bloodline, but he neglected the enormous amount of true essence contained within the golden core. Moreover, Taoist Jin Li wasn't an ordinary core-forging enlightened master. When Lu Ping awoke from seclusion, it had been almost a year since Lu Ping broke through to the core-forging realm. The golden core in his core space had already retracted its dazzling golden glow. Lu Ping had a strange expression on his face as he felt the enormous amount of true essence within his body. His cultivation had already reached the peak of the first layer of core forging and could advance to the second layer at any time. Lu Ping pondered for a moment. The 12 gentian pearls suddenly appeared around Lu Ping from his core space. Immediately after, rumbling sounds could be heard from the cave as if it was about to collapse. Lu Ping hurriedly withdrew the gentian pearls into his body. The restrictions surrounding the cave quieted down, and Lu Ping let out a long sigh of relief. Although the gentian pearls had only been summoned for a short period of time, Lu Ping could still feel the ease of using them. Moreover, their power had increased exponentially. Compared to the blood condensation realm, the core forging realm was truly a qualitative leap. However, Lu Ping felt a headache when he thought about the 12 gentian pearls he would have to start engraving restrictions on after he reached the core forging realm and then nurture them into transcendent artifacts. Apart from the fact that Lu Ping wasn't proficient in refining, nurturing 12 gentian pearls at once was not an easy task. Moreover, once the gentian pearls were upgraded into transcendent artifacts, Lu Ping would face the same predicament as when he was in the blood condensation realm. After using them for a few rounds, his true essence would be exhausted. Lu Ping pondered for a moment, then stretched out his hand and pointed. 1,296 sword lights immediately appeared around Lu Ping. With Lu Ping's will, these 1,000 sword lights began to display different sword techniques, sword styles, and sword moves. It was as if more than 1,000 people were controlling them. 1,296 spiritual sword lights. Lu Ping clenched his right hand, and the 1,296 psychic sword flashes gathered together. A 3-foot-long sword began to gather in Lu Ping's hand. The hilt, calyx, blade, and blade took shape one by one. However, just as the tip of the sword was about to take shape, Lu Ping's expression changed. The final 81 psychic sword flashes did not successfully gather and dispersed. Lu Ping sighed resentfully. In the end, he was still lacking one last bit. He had not reached the realm of unity of sword and practice. He was still one step away from the highest realm of sword intent. Lu Ping waved his hand and dispersed the sword light. Then, he took out the golden scale sword from his storage ring. A huge amount of true essence immediately cleansed the golden scale sword that contained Lu Ping's divine sense and transcendence energy. One of the biggest characteristics of the core forging realm was that one's true essence and divine sense would begin to fuse to the greatest extent. This was unlike the blood condensation realm, where one's transcendence energy and divine sense were separate. This was also the fundamental reason why many divine abilities and spells could only be displayed and cultivated in the core forging realm. Wielding the golden scale sword once again, Lu Ping felt a lot more relaxed. In the blink of an eye, the jerkiness of wielding the golden scale sword had completely disappeared. The amount of true essence Lu Ping had expended was also greatly reduced, and the golden scale sword's power was truly displayed. With Lu Ping's current strength, even enlightened Master Jin Li at his peak might not be his match, not to mention the masked assassin in linen who had tried to assassinate him earlier. Lu Ping made a slight hand seal, and the golden scale sword stabbed back at Lu Ping. In an instant, it entered Lu Ping's body. In Lu Ping's core space, a small flying sword was revolving around the golden core at the periphery of the 12 gentian pearls. At the same time, a portion of the true essence that Lu Ping had gathered from his bloodline through cultivation was also used by Lu Ping to nourish the golden scale sword. Storing an artifact into one's body was a technique that only enlightened masters of the core forging realm could do. As for blood condensation realm cultivators, they could only store their natal magic weapons into their bodies. The golden scale sword was originally enlightened Master Jean Li's natal magic weapon. During its refinement, many top-grade second-grade spiritual materials had been mixed into it. It was obvious that enlightened Master Jean Li regarded his natal magic weapon with great importance. The golden scale sword's potential for improvement was far greater than just a single restriction treasure. Naturally, Lu Ping wouldn't let such a good sword go to waste. After storing the golden scale sword into his core space, Lu Ping's spirits suddenly rose. Then, he flicked his finger with the storage ring, and a three-legged cauldron that was half the height of a person landed in front of Lu Ping. The Na Chuan Cauldron. Lu Ping had been drooling over it for a long time, but he had been unable to refine it due to his own transcendence energy, not to mention using a top-grade pill furnace. Now, Lu Ping finally had the confidence to try refining it. With his current true essence, which far surpassed cultivators of the same level, refining this huge cauldron shouldn't be too much of a problem, right? In the end, Lu Ping was still somewhat apprehensive, but he still inserted his true essence into the pill furnace without hesitation and began refining it. Lu Ping's complexion was slightly pale as he stared at the Na Chuan cauldron that was revolving around the golden core in his core space. Although Lu Ping had already estimated the difficulty of refining the Na Chuan cauldron, he still hadn't expected that this pill furnace would be so difficult to refine. Even with Lu Ping's current cultivation, he had to consume nearly one-third of his true essence to refine this treasure into his core space. Fortunately, if Lu Ping used the Na Chuan cauldron to refine pills, he wouldn't have to waste so much true essence. However, as soon as the Na Chuan cauldron entered the core space, it directly drove the golden scale sword to the outermost area, occupying the position where the golden scale sword used to be. Moreover, after being nourished by the true essence emitted by Lu Ping's golden core, the amount of true essence it could absorb was not below that of a gentian pearl. If it weren't for the fact that the 12 gentian pearls were Lu Ping's life-bonded magic tool, Lu Ping even suspected that the Na Chuan cauldron would try to occupy the position of the gentian pearl. It must be known that the closer one was to the golden core, the more true essence the magic tools would receive, and the greater the benefits they would obtain. Lu Ping was originally excited to upgrade the Na Chuan cauldron into a magic tool because of the precious restriction of the alchemy cauldron, but now he had already extinguished that thought. Not to mention that upgrading a top-grade alchemy cauldron into a magic tool, it needed to be done by a Grand Master of Alchemy and a Grand Master of Alchemy. Even if there wasn't a Grand Master of Alchemy, it still needed the cooperation of a Grand Master of Alchemy and a Grand Master of Alchemy to have a chance of success. If he was lucky enough to upgrade the Na Chuan cauldron into a magic tool, with Lu Ping's current strength, he would definitely not be able to use it proficiently. Moreover, Lu Ping's life-bonded gentian pearl was still a top-grade magic tool. If the Na Chuan cauldron was upgraded into a magic tool, it was very likely to be occupied by a sparrow. In the core space, the gentian pearl would be pushed to the outermost area, just like the golden scale sword. Now, a top-grade alchemy cauldron was enough for Lu Ping to use. It must be known that Yan Wujiu, as a Grand Master of Alchemy, only had a top-grade alchemy cauldron. In the entire Jinling cauldron, there were only 3 top-grade alchemy cauldron. Lu Ping took out the Na Chuan cauldron, and the sea blue spiritual fire excitedly licked the bottom of the Na Chuan cauldron. The temperature in the training room rose rapidly, and it faintly melted the restriction in the cave mansion. Lu Ping thought for a moment, and his hands formed 9 seals in a row. The surrounding restrictions shook for a moment, and then there was no more movement. The temperature in the cave mansion also seemed to have dropped. Art of deceiving the heavens and crossing the sea. After Lu Ping advanced to the core forging stage, the power of the North Sea 12 authentic laws seemed to have suddenly risen to a higher level along with Lu Ping's cultivation. The puppet boy pounded 27 kinds of 1,000-year-old spirit grasses and dozens of 500-year-old spirit grasses, and then Lu Ping put them into the alchemy cauldron and began to refine them. After the fire stabilized, the puppet boy was released, and he let it take care of the alchemy cauldron, while Lu Ping closed his eyes and meditated to restore the qi in his body. This time, Lu Ping was not willing to use the little purple crystal royal jelly, not to mention the few remaining high-grade spirit stones. Instead, he used the middle-grade spirit stones to cast the spirit explosion technique twice. After the purification technique and the core condensation technique, the Na Chuan cauldron was opened, and the 4 golden yuan dawn just flew out of the alchemy cauldron. They were imprisoned by Lu Ping and then stored in a jade crystal bottle. The success rate of 40%, although the golden yuan dan was one of the lowest level medicinal pills in the core forging stage, the success rate of 40% did indeed confirm Lu Ping's identity as an alchemy master. It was not like when he accepted the test in the Ziyue cave heaven. Except for the blue spiritual fire, Lu Ping almost used all of his trump cards, and he still had to rely on luck to pass the Grandmaster inheritance test. With this 40% success rate, Lu Ping finally seemed to have made up his mind. He reached his hand into an open book on the side and started reading. In the Qian Zhong millet, there was a beautiful bird about a foot in size singing on the peach tree. On the side, there was a somewhat silly but similar-looking bird standing on the branch of the peach tree, as if it was listening attentively. The lush peach tree swayed with the birds singing even though there was no wind. The rustling of the branches and leaves seemed to be accompanying the singing bird. At this moment, a giant hand broke through the air and interrupted the bird's singing. The giant hand made a stroke in the spiritual herb garden in the Qian Zhong millet space, and 3 golden thousand-year-old spiritual herbs fell into the hands of the giant hand, and then the giant hand disappeared. The little bird looked at the place where the giant hand had disappeared, and then began to sing as if nothing had happened. The peach tree was still playing the accompaniment. The other little bird jumped on the tree, clearly feeling that there was something different about the giant hand just now, but it was immediately attracted by the beautiful little bird's song. Golden marrow grass. This was the spiritual herb garden that Lu Ping inherited from alchemist Xing Tao left for him. In the spiritual herb garden, there were only 3,000-year-old spiritual herbs, and at the same time, there was also the only core forging level pill recipe jade slip, golden marrow pill. After years of careful cultivation by Lu Ping, these 3 golden marrow grass had long matured, and the spiritual herb seeds had also been replanted by Lu Ping in the spiritual herb garden. When Lu Ping started to refine the golden marrow pill, he felt a sense of heaviness, or rather, a sense of hope. Perhaps before alchemist Xing Tao passed away, he looked at the golden marrow grass in the spiritual herb garden with reluctance. This hope was buried in the bottom of Lu Ping's heart after he accepted his inheritance. When Lu Ping had the ability to refine core forging level pills, this hope appeared. Lu Ping let out a long sigh. The golden marrow pill was one of the best cultivation pills for early core forging level cultivators. Its effect was far superior to that of the golden origin pill, and the difficulty of refining it was far beyond that of the golden origin pill. This time, Lu Ping wanted to use all his skills to see what level his alchemy had reached after advancing to the core forging level. Chapter 292. Compared to when Lu Ping was in Ziyue Cave Heaven, Lu Ping's pill furnace had changed from a high-grade to a top-grade Na Chuan cauldron. His fire seed had changed from a top-grade level 3 bright yellow fire seed to a top-grade profound level blue spiritual fire. His cultivation had also advanced from the peak of the blood condensation realm to the peak of the first stage of the core forging realm. He even had the spirit explosion technique, a secret alchemy technique. It could be said that Lu Ping had made great progress in all aspects. The only difference was that the gold essence pill, which was the easiest to refine, had been changed to the relatively more difficult gold essence pill. In fact, Lu Ping wanted to first concoct a few cauldrons of medicinal pellets similar to the golden essence pellets to familiarize himself with the difficulty of concocting core forging realm medicinal pellets. Then, he would slowly advance and start concocting the golden marrow pellets. Unfortunately, after concocting the only cauldron of golden essence pellets, Lu Ping ran out of 1,000-year spirit herbs. Lu Ping originally thought that after he advanced to the core forging realm and became an alchemy master, it would be much easier for him to obtain 1,000-year-old spirit herbs. However, he neglected the fact that after he advanced to the core forging realm, his demand for thousand-year-old spirit herbs had increased. Although it had become extremely easy to obtain thousand-year-old spirit herbs after he became an alchemy master, the demand for them had increased. Lu Ping finally realized the fact that a core forging realm enlightened master was far inferior to a blood condensation realm cultivator when it came to refining pills. The most obvious example was the pill shops in Qianyuan City. Cultivators might have the opportunity to buy some blood condensation realm pills, but core forging realm pills were out of the question. Generally, these pills would only appear in auctions for core forging realm enlightened masters, or they would be used to barter between core forging realm enlightened masters. Now, Lu Ping's spiritual sense had experienced a sharp increase after advancing to the core forging stage. After his cultivation finally stabilized at the peak of the first layer of the core forging stage, his spiritual sense once again slowly increased. Now, it could almost cover a radius of 5 miles. Although the Na Chuan cauldron was still a bit strenuous for Lu Ping to control, its ability to extract, refine, and condense the spiritual power of spirit grasses was undoubtedly far superior to that of a high-grade cauldron. Coupled with the use of the purple crystal royal jelly, at the last moment of condensing the pills, Lu Ping crushed 4 mid-grade spirit stones and used the spirit explosion art to save the 2 pills that were about to explode. After opening the cauldron, 5 golden marrow pills danced in the air. Lu Ping was overjoyed. In his excitement, Lu Ping also took out the 3 golden marrow grasses that he had obtained from Fei Ling Island. Together with the remaining 2 golden marrow grasses, he refined another 5 batches of golden marrow pills. In total, he obtained a total of 30 pills. The price was that Lu Ping had completely used up all the thousand-year-old spirit grasses in his possession. Only the last third of the purple crystal royal jelly was left. Fortunately, these 30 golden marrow pills, together with the 4 golden essence pills from before, were enough for Lu Ping to use for a period of time. One had to know that a core forging realm enlightened master could only rely on spirit stones and spirit veins to cultivate. For enlightened masters, pills were like meat to mortals. Usually, they would eat them as fresh meat to satisfy their cravings. They would only save up until the new year. It was the same for a core forging realm enlightened master. Generally, they would save up pills, and when they encountered a bottleneck in their cultivation, they would break through in one go. After his cultivation, strength, and alchemy skills had continuously surprised Lu Ping, who was about to come out of his closed-door cultivation, remembered that he still had 4 purple jade slips that sealed his divine sense. Until now, Lu Ping still didn't know the contents of the jade slips. Now that Lu Ping's cultivation had reached the core forging realm, his divine sense had merged with the true essence in his body. These jade slips could no longer block Lu Ping's probing. Among the 4 jade scrolls, 2 of them were obtained by Lu Ping after he helped Qi Lianying kill Heng Shikue. Lu Ping probed one of the jade scrolls with his divine sense and found that it was a medicinal pellet recipe for a core forging realm medicinal pellet called the Crystal Mystic Core Pellet. At first glance, this medicinal pellet was obviously a core forging realm medicinal pellet recipe from the Crystal Palace. Fortunately, this medicinal pellet was suitable for Lu Ping's early core forging realm cultivation base. Not only did Lu Ping lack thousand-year-old spirit herbs, but he also lacked a pill recipe for the core forging realm. As an alchemy grandmaster, Lu Ping only had the golden essence pill, the golden marrow pill, and a pill recipe for the thousand seeker pill that he obtained from the Fei Ling sect. In total, he only had these 3 pill recipes for the core forging realm. Now that he had the crystal profound pill, Lu Ping had another option to refine pills for the core forging realm. After opening the second jade slip, Lu Ping was overjoyed. After killing Heng Shikue, what Lu Ping valued the most was the pair of ice and fire bracelets. Moreover, Heng Shikue had condensed more than half of the treasure restriction in it. Unfortunately, the ice and fire bracelets had not been completed yet, and Heng Shikue had died in the hands of Lu Ping. When condensing the treasure restriction in this pair of magic treasures, it would often be 2 treasure restrictions that could be fused with each other. When fighting against the enemy, its power was no less than a magic treasure that had condensed 3 treasure restrictions. It was the most strange and unpredictable. Unfortunately, Lu Ping did not have the method to use this pair of ice and fire bracelets. The 2 incomplete treasure restrictions were also not available. Lu Ping once wanted to use high-grade spiritual fire and ice to forcibly drive the ice and fire bracelets. This was also the reason why Lu Ping was so happy when he found the black prison poison fire seed in the broken Ziyue cave heaven. The black prison poison fire could only be used to refine poisonous pills. In addition, it was also a great weapon to fight against the enemy. What Lu Ping didn't expect was that the jade slip recorded the ice and fire bracelets' 2 contrasting enchantments, 1 ice and 1 fire. What was even more delightful was that the jade slip also contained the secret art to control the set of enchantments. Unfortunately, in the end, Lu Ping's cultivation method was still unable to fully unleash the power of the ice and fire bracelets. However, with the treasure restriction method, Lu Ping realized that his previous idea of using high-grade fire seeds and ice attribute spiritual materials to replace the ice and fire attributes that quintessential essence could not achieve was completely feasible. With the treasure restriction method, Lu Ping could unleash the power of the ice and fire bracelets on his own. The 3rd jade slip that Lu Ping obtained was in the Golden Valley of the 7-Star Sky. Lu Ping found the remains of the North Sea's Liao family's alchemy master, Reverend Liao Ding. From the storage bracelet of the remains, the most valuable thing that Lu Ping obtained was not the magic treasure medicine pounding pestle, but the pill formula for the heart-dissolving pill. And this jade slip was placed together with the pill formula for the heart-dissolving pill. How could Lu Ping not let his imagination run wild? A tyrannical divine sense wrapped in Lu Ping's robust quintessential essence instantly tore the seal on the surface of the jade slip. Lu Ping's divine sense probed inside and immediately revealed a shocked expression. As Lu Ping probed for a long time, Lu Ping's brows furrowed even more tightly. After a long time, Lu Ping slowly opened his eyes and murmured, "The cultivation world really does have a heart-forging pill." The heart-forging pill was similar to the heart-dissolving pill, which could raise a blood condensation realm cultivator's cultivation level by 1 level without harming their foundation. The heart-forging pill could also raise a core-forging realm enlightened master's cultivation level by 1 level without harming their foundation. However, this kind of heaven-defying pill had a limit. It was only effective for early core forging realm cultivators. Once a cultivator reached the mid-core forging realm, they would inevitably fuse with the spirit objects of heaven and earth, causing the spirituality of their bloodline to recover. At the same time, the forging of divine sense and golden core would reach a new level. Even so, if this kind of pill appeared in the cultivation world, it would inevitably cause an uproar in the cultivation world. It would set off a reign of terror. This kind of pill was not only useful for early core forging realm cultivators, but also for a sect. It could collectively raise a group of early core forging realm enlightened masters to the mid-core forging realm. This was the equivalent of shortening the cultivation time of early core forging realm cultivators by 30 years. For cultivators who had always been in a race against their lifespan, the importance of this pill was self-evident. Lu Ping had a hard time calming his excited mood. After advancing to the core forging realm, Lu Ping thought that his state of mind would no longer be affected by external factors. He didn't expect that the heart-forging pill would cause him to panic. After calming down, Lu Ping realized that it was extremely difficult to refine this heart-forging pill. This was because this pill was not for the core forging realm. The first 3 spirit herbs in the pill recipe were 3,000 years old, 9-fold grass, 7 battle flower, and yin-yang branch. This meant that this pill, which was suitable for early core forging realm cultivators, was actually a half-step transcendence realm pill that was in between the core forging realm and the transcendence realm pill. There were 36 types of 1,000-year-old spirit herbs and 30 types of 500-year-old spirit herbs. For Lu Ping's current alchemy skills, this was a level that he didn't dare to attempt. Of course, Lu Ping would never give up on the heart-forging pill. This was a great temptation for any cultivator. Even if Lu Ping's alchemy skills did not meet the requirements, after Lu Ping's cultivation reached the second stage of the core forging realm, he would still take the risk. Even if he destroyed all the spirit herbs that he had painstakingly collected, he would not hesitate. What's more, Lu Ping rummaged through the storage ring and found a jade essence box. After opening it, there were 9 well-preserved 3,000-year-old spirit herbs. These were the 9 3,000-year-old spirit herbs that enlightened Master Liao Ding had prepared to collect before he died in the Golden Valley. The 9-fold grass and 7 battle flower were impressively among them. There were 3 9-fold grass and 2 7 battle flowers. Obviously, enlightened Master Liao Ding sealed his cultivation and risked his life to enter the core area of the Golden Valley to collect these 2 spirit herbs. Unfortunately, a dignified enlightened master died at the hands of the blood-melting mosquitoes. In other words, of the 3 most important spirit herbs for refining the heart-forging pill, Lu Ping now had 2 of them in his hands. Lu Ping took out a big wooden table. On the table, images of various spirit herbs, including their names, growth habits, medicinal values, and so on appeared. Lu Ping found the image of the yin-yang branch and firmly remembered it in his mind. Then, Lu Ping also found the other 36 kinds of 1,000-year-old spirit herbs that Lu Ping had never seen before on the big wooden table. This was to prevent Lu Ping from missing them the next time he encountered them. The last jade scroll was obtained by Lu Ping in the mysterious cave of an enlightened master on Fei Ling Island. One of the 2 jade scrolls recorded the other part of the North Sea wave listening technique that Lu Ping was currently practicing, the flying spirit sea wave treading technique. The other jade scroll recorded the natal gentian formation that Lu Ping was currently practicing. Therefore, Lu Ping had the highest expectations for this jade scroll. At the same time, Lu Ping also hoped that this jade scroll contained all the records of the Lin Hai wave listening technique. This was because the Lin Hai wave listening technique that Lu Ping had initially practiced was an inheritance that Jinling had received from the Fei Ling sect. Moreover, this technique had started to become incomplete after reaching the Dharma stage. Later, although it had been supplemented and improved by generations of Jinling practitioners, and was enough for a practitioner to practice until the mid-Dharma stage, how could Lu Ping be satisfied with the mid-Dharma stage? Now that Lu Ping had merged the Lin Hai wave listening technique and the flying spirit sea wave treading technique, the training method after the mid-Dharma stage had become clearer. However, Lu Ping was more concerned about what kind of level he would reach when the 2 complete techniques were completely merged. However, judging from the disappointed expression on Lu Ping's face after he had used his divine will to explore the Jade Scroll, Lu Ping's hopes had obviously been dashed. Come to think of it, if the flying spirit sea wave treading technique had not been sealed by his divine will, then how could the Lin Hai wave listening technique have been sealed? However, Lu Ping's expression immediately became one of shock. The shock on his face became more and more intense, even more so than Lu Ping's expression when he had seen the heart-forging elixir formula.